Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another NerdTube Star Trek episode review. We're here tonight talking about Strange New World Season 2, Episode 9, Subspace Rhapsody. We have the penultimate episode and another oddball episode wrapped into one. Uh, Before we get into it, we'll do some introductions. I'm Major Rage. To my right is Zam. How are you this evening, sir?
Well, fine, thank you. Look forward to talking about this episode.
A lot to discuss. I'm looking forward to it as well. Below us is Cousin Cheeto. How are you, sir?
All I know is that Christine Chappell really redefines the hit it and quit it terminology. So
Dropped him like a hot bag of rocks.
dude,
We'll get there.
it's been what, 3 episodes?
Yeah, that
Like,
was at most 3 weeks, maybe a month-long fling. But they established earlier that she was more about flings than an actual real relationship, so it's not
I know, I feel
surprising.
bad for Spock.
I feel terrible for Spock. We'll definitely get into all of that later. Um,
And honestly, if they try to delve this into a more will they won't they type thing, like I'm not on board for that. Like I'm just break them up. Like just let it
yeah,
go. Let her leave for a couple months at the in between the seasons and just let it be. Anyway, back to you, Mage.
no, that I agree with how it needs to be handled for sure. You're not wrong about that. Um, do we have any comments from chat to get through before we get to overall
no,
thoughts and impressions?
um, not yet. But I would like to give you my impressions.
Yeah, let's the overall impressions from you for sure, Sam.
Um, I I, I wanted to like this episode more than I did. Unfortunately, I thought the premises was interesting, and I have no problems with Star Trek trying to do different things and new things, and this was definitely that. But I think the direction they went with the musical was totally the wrong direction. What I wanted from this was not what I got. What I wanted was them to maybe somehow sing and delegate the problems they are having with the Klingons who are coming there to attack them and stuff like that. And some of the diplomacy, but in musical form. But we never got that. What we got was more of the relationship issues with Pike, with Spock, and with Liana. Their things, and for me that didn't work. And if anything, my interest has started to wane because I don't give a shit about some of their relationships too much. Kirk is a bit of a womanizer. He fucks around all the time. Leanna's got no chance. Why are we even bothering? Chapel and Spock, historically, if they are following a similar timeline, that's never going to pan out either. And honestly, who gives a fuck about Pike and his fuck buddy who works in another ship? I don't. I wanted this imminent threat we were getting with the Klingons seemed to be far more interesting. And if they brought the musical that direction instead, and they're like having sing-offs with the Klingons, and they're trying to solve problems and stuff like that, and a bit of diplomacy with their music. It would have been far more interesting than what we got today. Because honestly, I actually looked at my phone on a handful of occasions. I found it that interesting. So it wasn't the best episode in my opinion.
I agree with almost every point you just made, Sam. You know, the one bit of back and forth we got with the Klingons was that like cheesy, almost insulting hip hop bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and the sci-fi seemed to get lost for all the interpersonal stuff, uh, which it just the sci-fi elements seem to be like an afterthought or just kind of brushed aside, quickly handled on what's supposed to be a sci-fi show. So definitely some problems with an episode that I definitely was hoping to enjoy. Um, so with all that being said, we can get down to a
You
plate
can
by
ask
plate.
Cheeto.
Did you have anything further to add as far as overall impressions,
I mean, it
Cheeto?
didn't surprise. I agree with Zam. It's not. It's nowhere. I honestly would say it's probably the worst episode of the season. I'm trying to think. I mean, if not, it's tied for worst. I'm trying to remember what episode but I, you know, but and you were complaining about the relationship thing. I knew we were going into this because musicals are indicative of the whole teenage high school musical. Even, I mean, like it's indicative of a musical. It was going to be all relationships. I agree with you. I wish they would have kind of thrown a swerve and would have done like the negotiations and stuff like that with with the Klingons, and they would have just had to have dealt with all of them singing, at certain points. It would have been fun. But yeah, and then like the Enterprise and the ships, like at the end, like the point that really bugged me is like the Enterprise and then the Takang or whatever. I always want to call them D7, but the were Takang, the cruisers flying around them like they were like in a pool, like the swimming dancers or whatever. That was very insulting to me. I thought it was very stupid. I mean, I didn't really hate any of the songs, but as I said, I agree with Zam. I feel like that this was not a good episode of Trek, even if it was a musical one. And this is what I was afraid of. This is really what I was afraid of when they said they were doing a musical. I was hoping to be surprised, and I was hoping that they were going to go a different direction. But yeah, they had the Kirk Laan stuff, Pike and his girlfriend, and and then the other one, I don't know, Spock and Chapel, which was honestly that relation that's heinous. Like what they've done with that relationship already is heinous. And as I said,
it's over before it's even started.
Yeah, I'm not a shipper of Chapel and Spock. Like I didn't hate this episode, but this episode really did nothing for this season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds and Star Trek in general. Like it being the first musical, it did nothing. It did nothing to stand out as a good musical episode of anything. It just standard run of the mill CW or what other things had musicals like CW musical
UPN,
episodes and
some UPN shows.
Grey's Anatomy, didn't they have they had a stupid musical episode? Like it's right there with all those.
It started off reasonably well as far as I was concerned. I thought, okay, this is interesting, and they noticed that they are singing and all of that. It was amusing to a degree, but it just didn't have the legs to make it all the way through in a good way. Unfortunately, this on paper this might have sounded like a good idea, and I do commend them for giving it a shot, but I condemn them for it not working, unfortunately. So Daniel Vance says this one dropped the season average by a number or two for him. So yeah, fair enough. I totally understand.
No, a season is only as strong as its weakest link in a lot of ways, and this was definitely a weak link for this season. The musical aspects of it were well done, but it doesn't feel like Trek being this focused on interpersonal relationships, and they're trying to hurriedly finish up all these interpersonal relationship threads that they have chosen to make the main focus overall of the season instead of having an overall plot arc, which I don't necessarily feel like you have to have an overall plot arc for every show these days just because it's the current formula. But it's very un-Trek.
Sorry, Admiral. I've sent you a link on your Twitter, dude. Please join us. We would love to hear from you, as I heard from you earlier today. It'd be good to hear your opinion on things. Well, further opinions amongst my friends as well. So, Daniel Vance says, directed by Dermot Downes, who had done multiple music videos for bands like Cypress Hill, Papa Roach, Sublime, Breaking Benjamin, Rascal Flatts, and OK Go. Oh, fair enough. So, wow. Yeah, but I mean, regardless, if the script doesn't work, then even if you got
not even the script, it's the premise. The premise didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not sure how well it fits a musical, which is, as Cheeto says, inherently focuses on interpersonal relationships, usually works in a show that the original vision was. I'm not that guy who's like Gene's vision or anything, but as originally conceptualized, there were no interpersonal conflicts between the crew members, and all the conflicts and all the plot drive was from their situations and how they would get out of them. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not good to try something different, quite the opposite, but I feel that this just doesn't work, and maybe
I
that it's
think
just a cry too far.
I think tonally as well, like this season's a bit all over the place.
Yes.
Like,
Well, and
now we're
it was
getting
last week's
yeah,
last week's episode was hot and heavy. Like last week's episode was pretty
with
heavy,
dark.
and yeah, and then you go to the musical. Like really, the musical should have been earlier in the season when things were a little bit more lighthearted.
Mhm.
And I mean, honestly, like the either that or put it right before or right after the Lower Decks episode.
I was just about to say put it right next to the crossover.
And
You
then
read my
episode
mind.
8 should have been episode 9 leading into the season finale next week. You know what I mean? Like give us
Mhm.
the hot and heavy right before. And I don't even know what the season finale's title is. So I mean, I don't whatever it's
Well, I'll
gonna
tell you what
be.
also feels
Maybe
weird
we'll
as well that
finally.
sorry, go on.
Oh, you go ahead first, Sam. Then I'll chime in.
Well, look, we're 9 episodes in, and I still don't feel like we've got that Ortegas episode yet, either, which feels a bit weird. I mean, like a proper episode solely focused around her or her way, if not necessarily solely focused, but with her definitely being like the main factor of the episode, and I don't feel like we've got that with her this season. We never got it in season 1. We were told we were going to get it in season 2. It hasn't materialized unless it's the final episode. And there's no problem in that, to tell you the truth. I think we've only really got one episode where Pike was the main character too, funny enough.
Oh, I know what next week's episode is about. Yeah, definitely going to be a different tone.
Oh.
Yeah, so like
just by the title, you know exactly what it's about.
Okay, I want to be surprised. So
all right, well, I won't say.
Yeah. I don't want to know just yet. So regarding this season, tonally all over the place. 1 minute it's a comedy, next minute it is. And in a way, I didn't mind the lightheartedness after what we got from Discovery to a degree. But if you're going to throw the tones everywhere, then it feels, the show itself then feels a bit weird, because like the humor this season has been there's been a lot of it. And then you throw in an episode like last week where you got Mbenga on the warpath. And it's like, what the hell am I watching here? And he hasn't been, we were discussing it heavily last week regarding whether he should have like gone down for what he did, or maybe gone to court or whatever. It feels like nothing has materialized from that. Yeah, no Tubate, by the way. Yeah, it's a talk. It's a Streamlabs. It's not StreamYard. It's Streamlabs. Yeah. So yeah. Once again, the episode it did feel pretty much very bizarre for a show like, for a series like this, having this musical episode. I honestly, as much as I love Strange New Worlds, to a degree, I'm not sure how I feel about this season now as we go through it. It started off pretty well. Obviously, the Lower Decks episode was something that we all thoroughly enjoyed. But I think the last couple of episodes, last week's and this week's, have been a little bit, down in the dumpster, so to speak. Daniel Vance says, test, getting chat errors.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at it now. I'm trying to see if I'm getting errors when I go in there.
Okay. Disney Sheep Herder. Hello, Disney. Howdy and hail. Licking the like. Have a great stream. Thank you very much. Okay.
Licking the like, man. That's some like right there.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hopefully, Admiral Teague will join us and give us his expertise. I have sent him the link on Twitter. So yeah, we're still waiting for you, mate, to join us as our special guest this week. So yeah. All right, so let's do this play-by-play.
Okay, awesome. So we start with the Enterprise having found a naturally occurring subspace fold Spock is using the computer to check if it can be used to enhance communications for Starfleet. So due to the computer being heavily used, Uhura's having to route calls manually. We see Pike having her hail Captain Batel, Una checking on Kirk's arrival status, James Kirk, that is. Spock calls to resume the experiment, and Chapel asked about the status of a message from Dr. Kirby. So right here, it's given us our 4 plot thread cast sets, basically. So we get Pike and Batel discussing their vacation, which Pike asked to put the planning for on hold. He doesn't seem
He's
to like
giving
the
it the elbow,
destination.
isn't he?
He is. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
man, that's touristy. Maybe instead of saying, hey, maybe can we go somewhere else that's closer to what we both like, he dodges it.
Yeah.
And
He just wants to be in the mountains and like go ice fishing or some shit like that.
yeah, he's the solitary outdoorsman type, so he
Yeah.
doesn't want to go to a resort.
Yeah, it's amazing how he ended up being captain of a starship with that sort of mindset.
A little bit. In the transporter room, Una and La'an are waiting on Jim Kirk to arrive. He's coming to shadow Pike as part of a final preparation for him taking on the first officer job on the Farragut.
I thought he was shadowing Una.
Is it Una he's shadowing?
I mean,
she said, I missed what was going on with it the first initial, both times actually, and the line I kept catching was her saying how she shadowed Pike and it readied her.
Yeah, so I think she shadowed Pike. Yeah, I just, that was the impression I got, was that because remember they were singing later in the hallway while he was like, they were kind of chatting. I figured that he was shadowing her.
I'm more than possible that I got that detail wrong, and if I did, I apologize.
I mean, I might be wrong too.
It makes more sense for him being a potential first officer to be shadowing a first officer. That makes way more sense.
Daniel Vance will correct us in the comments. It'll be fine.
Yeah, for real. So in the Una can tell something.
1 second. Welcome to the stream. Regarding both legs falling asleep, yeah, I know how that feels too, mate. All right.
Those are such a relief once they're finally over, though.
Yes, definitely.
So when Kirk beams aboard, he brings up having that drink that Lon owes him, and Una kind of nods knowingly. We cut to Chapel and Ortegas opening the message from the Fellowship, and turns out Chapel was one of the 5 accepted. For 3 months, this fellowship's going to go on. In engineering, Spock and Uhura are visited by Hocus Pocus, Commodore Pelia, and
Commodore Pelia, Mrs. 40 a day, red wine drinking. Yeah, it's just so crazy. I can't believe she's the same woman from bloody Scrooge. Ghost of Christmas Present.
She's the only person in Starfleet who would actually enjoy Chateau Picard.
Yeah, for sure.
So they tell her that they're not having much success in doing this, and they could use this though if they're successful to triple communication time, and have real-time communications across the Federation. She suggests that they try music, that maybe harmonics will do the trick since they're dealing with a different set of physics and reality. So they send in a song of Uhura's choosing from the Great American Songbook, and the fold ends up emitting a blast that permeates the entire ship. And on the bridge, Pike calls down to Uhura, and while they're talking, Spock bursts into song. Everyone.
Okay, 1 second. One second. Let me just bring in Admiral Teague. How you doing? Welcome to the stream, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. It's very kind of you.
Oh, we've got a similar mic, by the way. Very nice.
Are you able? You can hear me, right? All right.
Yeah, we can hear you, mate.
Thanks for joining us.
we just
hello to all of your chat and to all of you. I've always enjoyed your streams, so it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you very much. We've had so many different people within the Star Trek universe, whether it be people like Vance Major, who does No Project Productions and stuff like that, and obviously Commodore Boone and people from the Avalon universe and all of that. So it's always nice to have another Trekkie with us as well. So we are breaking down the episode, but very brief, quickly, Admiral. How did you find this episode?
Unacceptable. It was unacceptable. This was an insult to my intelligence. I would give it the Billy Madison Award. At no point during their long, rambling dissertation did they have anything resembling a coherent point. I award them no points, and may God have mercy on their soul.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I gather you didn't enjoy it.
Some of the people seem to know how to sing.
Yeah.
Some of the people seem to know how to sing.
Well, they all know how to sing better than me, so my
maybe
issue
not
with this
Pike.
episode,
maybe not Pike.
My issue with this episode was not that whether they could sing or not. It was the premise. We kind of covered this in the beginning, was about the interpersonal relations that just permeated this entire episode, which is indicative of all musical episodes. So
yeah, just to get an idea, like as to the people in the chat, so they get an idea of my problem with the episode. My problem with the episode wasn't necessarily that this was a musical episode. It was the direction the musical took us. Instead of maybe doing some of the more diplomatic things that Star Trek are known about, and taking the musical that direction with the conflict with the Klingons, they did the relationship thing, which I didn't give a fuck about. I don't care about Pike and his fuck buddy. I don't give a shit about Spock and Chapel, because we know it's going to go nowhere, and so is Leon and Kirk. They're going to go nowhere as well. These are insignificant things. When you have a real issue of people singing and it's going to affect the fucking universe, let's focus on that instead of these goddamn relationships, and bring the musical that direction, and them singing their way out of trouble. It will be far more interesting than what we got here. And so I was very disappointed that it went that direction and not the direction I was hoping it would go, if you know what I mean.
Does anyone else here play an instrument of any kind? All right, so pretty much all of us. All right, I play the guitar and I can play the bass, and I'd like to consider myself a halfway decent singer. Didn't it feel like we were always in the part between the big songs in a musical? Like if you've seen Les Miserables, there's parts where they just kind of have to weave, like, somewhere out there into Master of the House with some expository music. I felt like we were always sort of stuck in the expository music phase. I never felt like we burst out into full song, except maybe once where we did a song that was kind of a lot like Firecracker by Katy Perry. And I thought it was all very under-inspired as far as the musical writing went. And I think for the 21 producers, we had but one writer on this, didn't we?
Yeah, it was one writer listed.
Imagine that. They wrote how many songs and all that dialogue?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, unfortunately, modern television nowadays is flooded with producers, not just Star Trek, everything. I think anything which is got a reasonable budget towards it, it's just producers galore and too many cooks.
There we go.
I'm sure.
I'm much happier like this. There's no way to load an avatar, huh?
I think you could
maybe
put it in a profile picture in your settings.
Yeah, so we're using the Melon app or the Streamlinks, because it's actually a lot cheaper to use than StreamYard. So
tell me about it.
Okay. StreamYard
it seems to be pretty functional. Yeah, it is a bit of a pain in the ass to pay for it, but I hate Strange New Worlds so much that I'm willing to take on that burden and buy the requisite equipment to do my podcast. Someone has to document this.
Yeah, fair enough.
Infinite diversity and infinite combination. So
got to have all points of view are pretty much valid. Bring it forward. Share it with the world.
I have no malice against anyone who enjoys this, although I'd say, if you wanted like a light sci-fi soap opera, why did you have to go name it Star Trek? Because where was the Trekishness to this? I mean,
this episode, you're right.
Or in general, how many planets have we gone to on Strange New Worlds? The last planet I remember was Old Familiar Earth.
Well, I mean, that was the original series all the time.
The planet on the crossover episode, they went and landed there a couple of times.
Yeah,
they didn't.
We went to
civilizations, but
Forgetful Planet as well.
We found a working Stargate on that planet, though. That's just unexplained, just sort of hanging out there. That was a very low effort episode as well.
I mean, look at City on the Edge of Tomorrow. I mean, you know, the Guardian. Why am I losing words today? The Guardian of
Forever. The Guardian of Forever he's a technology, though. It's an AI, and when they try to talk to it, it's like, listen, MFers, I can't fast forward or rewind. I play at one speed. You can watch all your history like as many times as you want. You change your own past, and you're stuck in our pocket dimension here. Was it the Hakonians? They mentioned the name of the race that they thought had built it, and they had a similar but maybe not the same name. They weren't the Iconians, but it was close.
The Takan?
Maybe. We all know what we're talking about as far as the city on the edge of forever, and the Guardian was actually technology, but it's so advanced that it might as well be magic. So, I mean, have we seen a dose of like heavy duty magic in Star Trek before? Well, then yes. Because that episode shows it. But I think I compared on my show that this episode of Star Trek was as though the entire multiverse of madness was simply them stuck in the paint dimension. It was an interesting idea, but it wasn't a whole show worth. And that was the longest show they've ever made at 1 hour and 9 minutes. And it felt like more.
I thought it was only 1 hour and 2.
Maybe till credits. It comes up as 1 hour and 9 in the time code.
I think there was something mentioning about a dimension of singing, and which is kind of like which ended up like almost like melding into their dimension, so to speak. But it's Star Trek techno gabble. So
these songs weren't good enough. Yeah. And you know what? At least we've avoided the worst case scenario, which was them singing lyrical Ponfar music, like the Ponfar like fight music, like I want to give like putting lyrics to that, or like just like I mean, Beyond Antares is now a dignified and low key expression of music in Star Trek. Very low key, very subtle, very light hand in Beyond Antares when Uhura sings that.
I'm glad it wasn't an all-out musical. It was close, but it wasn't a proper all-out musical. There was, gaps between the songs, and in a way, we kind of needed that because if it was all out, I would have probably gone nuts.
It was it was a lot. It was a lot like sort of Guantanamo Bay. They hit you with the horrible music, and then they throw your head under the filthy water. But when they pull it up long enough for you to breathe, you feel a sense of relief, even though you're hearing the horrible music again, because at least it's a break.
Fair enough. So we're just breaking down this episode, and whereabouts are you, Mage?
I was about to finish describing how everybody that was shown in kind of that Uhura intro sequence, all the players of the different plot points join in this song. And then it goes into the round, and we get the intro sequence, which has an a cappella version of the intro song of the theme music.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I actually like that. I did. I
liked it too. Just like I like just like I like the nice. Animated intro in the crossover episode. I really thought that was nice.
The music.
I thought the animated intro was maybe of a higher quality than the rest of the episode, to be honest with you. You could feel when the Strange New Worlds writers took over. You could feel their hands grabbing that story. Okay. We didn't really... Did you really feel like that passed smoothly from one writing team to another? You could feel it. I could sense the change in gears. It happened just about at the end of the animated segment.
Oh, it's a crossover. I mean, I'll just happy for what it was. Actually, that crossover episode I did enjoy because there were elements of it that was was Lower Decks, and it is supposed to be comical in that sense. But then the very end, obviously, with the diplomacy and then breaking almost like building a bridge with the Orions and giving them credit to finding that Stargate or whatever. It was classic Star Trek, and it was lovely. I thought it was a lovely ending to the episode. Yeah.
So, to me, the acapella part of that intro was reminiscent of the original series intro. So I kind of
with the
enjoyed that. Just the pure vocal. Yeah. No, I liked that touch. But after the intro, we have a briefing, and there's reports of musical numbers breaking out all over the ship. Spock says that the Enterprise is stuck in an improbability field. And it looks like a zipper.
This gave me the biggest laugh, and I was laughing at it, not with it.
Yeah, this was so weak.
Fucking zipper.
It was
space.
Pure Douglas Adams. All of it, from the improbability drive on, right from Douglas Adams.
Fucking zipper in space. Is that what you're gonna do? And then you got fucking Hocus Pocus. After she's fucking finishing her cigarettes and drinking her wine, telling us it's a zipper and shit. And can we close it like a zipper?
No wonder things keep going from bad to worse. They keep listening to her ideas.
Why don't you guys zip the zipper back up, like after I got done with your dad?
One day we'll find out why she talks like Yoda.
Because she's like 5,000 years old,
40
apparently.
reds a day.
Yeah. Can I just point out, if we found out right now that living among us for thousands of years with these superannuated lifespans, longer than Robot Picard, just living on and on from the Dark Ages till now, if we discovered them 100 years from now after we had some kind of space flight, do you think the first thing we would say is, we trust you, how about you join our military? And they would be like, we need to put you guys in jail till we know who all of you are. We need fingerprints. You're going to need some documents. We wouldn't be this cool. We're not this cool to humans who want to move from place to place.
I'm not so sure.
I don't know about it.
No, look, you got to understand.
She's an engineer.
You forgot the origins of how the Federation even kind of began, but it began with Vulcans, coming down to Earth and meeting Zephyr Cochrane. That's how it all started. Them breaking bread with different aliens who've also all joined the Federation as well, Andorians too. I don't see why that would be a problem as well, in my opinion.
This is not that Federation.
Well,
I just don't think that. Federation. But this Federation doesn't operate by any set of rules that you or I can predict or understand.
I mean, they might have military ranks, but they're not necessarily a military. They're explorers.
Oh, they are not explorers. What have they explored this season? Their feelings?
Yeah. No. I get the sarcasm on that, but they are still supposed to be explorers. When you hear the narrative at the beginning of TNG and TOS and stuff like that, to explore strange new worlds and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, this show is called Strange New Worlds. Even though they might not necessarily be doing what they're supposed to be doing, they are still explorers.
The show is called Strange New Worlds, but we don't go to many strange new worlds. We have been to old familiar Earth this season. We stopped over on a couple of planets here and there. We don't have an urge to explore, and it looks cheap and poorly done. And if I might just invite a comparison to another new Trek show, do we think this exists in the same reality as Picard 3? At least Picard 3? Is that still part of this world? Because in Picard 3, they say we can't explore because we have to fight. And then they're like, we won't fight because we have to explore. So they very much have it both ways in that show. So we could say that they're primarily explorers, but they'll turn around and become aggressive. And we still never have found out what happened with that Gorn attack ship we saw at the end of episode 1.
I mean, they can be aggressive. They've got Section 31 and stuff like that, but which is stuff which has recently been brought in to add extra dimensions to Star Trek. But predominantly, it was always just about them just meeting different alien races and first contact and stuff like that.
Here's the big issue, because don't get me wrong, I love old Trek and stuff like that. But the thing is that there has to be somewhat of a military aspect to this, because you can sit there and say that the Federation is a utopia and everybody's kumbaya, and that's great. Like, the Federation can be that. That doesn't mean the universe is like that. So
No,
there has to be
agree.
something.
I agree.
So like it is.
I mean,
kind
that's
of
why they have
silly.
weapons and stuff. They're not passive in that sense. They still have weapons, but they're defenders. They're not necessarily attackers, even though they have
Yeah.
gone on the offense now and again. And that's when people within the Federation go against their their bosses, so to speak. Like you saw in Insurrection and stuff like that.
Well, if I may, this is no sort of federation that you go anywhere by listening to. Raffi is now second in command of the new Enterprise, and she has 13 mutinies. She's got a chance for
Yeah,
number 14 now,
dude.
though, guys. We're in there.
Dude, come on, Captain Kirk stole the Enterprise and shit. Like like these guys.
You know what? He did face
all the top
he
guys.
faced consequences for
Yeah,
that,
but
though,
I'm
didn't
just
he?
saying. I'm just saying. All these guys break all the top most popular characters break the rules at some point. I mean, well, look at what Cisco's done as well on DS9.
I'm talking about 13 mutinies for Raffi, and they made her a cop. That makes sense. When we see that screen, and remember, they don't tell us stories very reliably or very honestly, but when they show us that screen, it said on Raffi, 13 court-martial offenses. But she's got a chance for number 14 because she is now second in command of a starship again. Someone tell me why. They're not very military at all.
Yeah, for that, I'll just go down with bad writing.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
we agree.
We agree.
One is. I mean, where was
my
that?
example was from 3. My example was from 3 actually, because I'm assuming that 3 and Strange New Worlds exist in the same continuity to some degree.
I don't think so.
Actually, we're convinced that it's a part of the First Contact timeline, where the timeline split when the Enterprise went back in time and dealt with the Borg back in the past, because we think that when they went back, there was a splinter in the timeline, obviously, because any time travel creates some sort of splinter in the timeline. So what it did is now everything from First Contact, like going back, so you're looking at First Contact, and then you're looking at Enterprise, and then Discovery.
You don't think there's a paradox?
And Strange New Worlds. Like to us, all of this is a new reality. And you know what? Is this canon? No, it's head canon. Like just like anything else in a fictional world can be head canon, unless it is specifically ruled out in the canon. So,
and right there in a nutshell is why I find your show to be enjoyable. You make admissions, you're not dogmatic about it. You understand that this isn't truly Star Trek. It's a Star Trek fanfic, and sometimes it really does fail. It really whiffed this week.
I wouldn't say it's a fanfic. I would just say, I mean, that's like saying the mirror. That's like saying the mirror universe is a fanfic. Like
I would say we could watch. Would you say the Orville is more or less like the original series than this show?
It's more like TNG.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. It's a lot like TNG.
I mean, let's be real. The Orville.
How come they only need 4 producers?
Had bigger action sequences of the Dominion War.
And also, let's not forget, Orville did go down the comedy route initially. It was only when they went with season 3 that they kind of really hone in on the more serious aspects of it and became more like TNG. The first 2 episodes were for laughs. First 2 seasons, sorry.
I don't want to be...
mostly, yes, I agree.
So a lot of this sounds like it would make like great podcast topics. We really need to get the highly logical podcast going again, and maybe
let's get back on the breakdown. Yeah,
exactly. So Pelia asks if maybe it looks like a zipper, maybe it'll function like one, and they come up with a plan to close it with a beam from the deflector dish, and like. It's just the technobabble feels weak. Just the science part here feels phoned in, and we get right back to the feels. On the bridge, Uhura's looking for the frequency that's but Spock gets focused on the message to Chapel and asks if Uhura's read it. She asks him about their relationship, and he kind of spills the beans. We're saved by the bell when Una calls. She and Kirk are working on readying the beam to what they need it to do by hooking up some sort of power conduits to it. So as they discuss Una's command style, while given this, no, you've got to be right, Cheeto. It has to be he's shadowing her. Especially given the context of this discussion. Una breaks into song again, though. She points out in the middle of the song that she's opening up and admitting things that she would never ordinarily talk about. Kirk joins in, and it becomes a duet, and then we get La'an overhearing and overseeing this.
Bit of jealousy.
A bit of jealousy there, bit of concern for what she's hearing. She retreats to her quarters where she ends up singing a number about wishing that she could let go of her kind of control type of nature and open up some, but it's just not in her nature. And she talks about maybe the possibility of finding something with this timeline's James Kirk. But she ends up reporting to the captain about this, the soul-bearing nature of these song outbursts, and she deemed it a security threat. Any parts of these scenes that you guys feel particularly stick out, or is it just
No,
the
keep going,
typical?
mate.
Yeah, just keep going. I mean,
Keep
Just
going. I'll let you know.
Distinguished by how poorly some of them do come off, honestly.
The only thing that really sticks out to me is just how lackluster the science-y part was on a sci-fi show.
Yeah. Yes.
So Spock is ready on his end. The Kirks are bickering as they connect the last conduits to the deflector dish, and they fire it, and the result is another energy surge happening. They get a call from the Cayuga and Captain Battelle, and she breaks into song over the view screen, and her and Pike fight about their vacation. He's alarmed. Pike's alarmed at how much he's revealing in front of his crew, and La'an cuts off the transmission. Spock says this field must be growing.
Oh wait, La'an did. You're right. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, I want to know something like the music. Does it just come out of thin fucking air?
Yeah, they just hear it all. It's manifested by them feeling their feels really strongly.
It's
allegedly,
science. The music.
Yeah,
is
they actually
incarnate.
They make an attempt to try to connect it to causality and science, and they're like, basically, it was the original Peter Pan thing. If we all get on the same page and cheer together and sing properly, we can sing our way out of this problem.
A quick comment here from Daniel Vance. I did giggle at Kirk's remark that he thought they're all rehearsed until he found himself singing. What kind of ship jokes has Kirk been a part of to think that? Yeah, and by the way,
Pike.
going on about Kirk, initially I was a bit concerned that they brought Kirk in, but I don't mind now. This version of Kirk, even though it's played by Jim Carrey and Sam Rockwell's playing his brother Sam, they're growing on me. Yeah.
The Kirk brothers, though, the thing is, as soon as they get together, the first thing they what's the cursing policy here?
You can say what you want as long as it's not racist.
Okay. Why do they just always start fucking with and one-upping each other and have such an adversarial relationship? Why can't they just be like, it's so nice to see you? Like Worf and Kern were much warmer to each other, and they were Klingons. These two guys both have like unresolved rivalry.
They do, and they kind of explored that in one episode where they were talking about never impressing their dad and whatnot.
Sibling rivalry, it's always, and I don't mind.
Maybe their dad's just right.
It's good maybe that not all siblings are the same. You got ones that who are going up against each other. I mean, Sam being the older brother, you saw in the previous episodes that he was upset that his younger brother is he's shot up in his career, but then again, Sam's just he's a science officer, so how far can he ever get being a science officer? Not many science officers end up being captains.
I don't think it has to do with science. I think it has to do with his field of his field, because I think Spock is more, because Spock's a science officer. He becomes a captain. He becomes captain of the Enterprise for a bit before Kirk comes.
He's almost like, he's also like a first officer as well, isn't he? I mean, not obviously not.
So I think it's more the field, because I think that Spock is more general science officer and like command structure, whereas Sam has more of a specialized,
he's like
science at that.
Sam is something like, exactly. He has a specialty, whereas Spock is the science consultant for the whole ship. He hasn't moved up to that first officer level yet, but we all know he's going to get there, I guess.
Yeah, he's like third in charge, isn't he?
They call him lieutenant, though. Is he lieutenant commander or is he lieutenant? I thought he was lieutenant commander.
I would imagine he's lieutenant junior grade.
Lieutenant junior grade?
That's a U.S. Navy rank
No,
that they don't use.
I know what Lieutenant Junior grade is. I'm just saying, like, that's really low. Like, that's even lower than I thought. Because
But it's 13 years before it's well, we've made up some of that time. I don't know if we've overrun Kirk's star date or not, because I can't make any sense of their star dates. But we're getting very close to the point of Kirk should be in command of that ship, and I don't know if he should only be the first officer of the Farragut.
Well, I think no, because Strange New World, or I'm sorry, Discovery season 1 takes place 10 years before Kirk takes over the Enterprise. So then Discovery,
so that was 8 months
2,
ago, according to episode 1 of this season. That was 8 months in the past, because he was dreaming about the battle. Or I'm sorry, was that season 1 where he wakes up and the battle is 8 months in the past?
Yeah, that was season 1. That was
So now the battle is 9 years ago, roughly.
Well,
If the show
just
was
because
more or
he was
less
dreaming
true.
about it doesn't mean that it doesn't really indicate one way or the other how long it's been.
That's a cool fact, Snail Messiah.
Snail Messiah, I believe he's
wow.
Danish. The only other country apart from my own that does good bacon. I just learned Malcolm McDowell, Dr. Soren, is the real life uncle of Alexander Siddig, Julian Bashir. And here's another thing. Wedge Antilles, the actor who plays him, his name is Dennis Lawson. He is also the real life uncle of Ewan McGregor, who's obviously famous for playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. There you go.
Isn't that something? And full disclosure, Snail Messiah is on Saving Star Trek all the time with me. He's one of my co-hosts.
Nice.
Yeah,
he's a great guy. He has a lot to contribute and a great deal of Star Trek knowledge.
Yeah, Peter Schmeichel, Snail Messiah.
Daniel Vance in the chat is our resident not Easter egg, but like knowledgeable.
Brains.
Like he just throws all of the
encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia.
He's got all our esoteric knowledge.
But sometimes I think to myself he's trolling us though, because I think what the hell sometimes
my chat was absolutely unmanageable today, and I apologize to all my subscribers that I wasn't able to get to it. I'd be on there till it would be another 8-hour stream if I read all the chats today. It was the engagement was really incredible. People have an appetite, and I guess you guys are finding this out too. People have a real appetite to know what happens in this Star Trek, but there's a turning away from wanting to watch it firsthand.
Yeah, I'm not sure with us. I mean, it's weird in the way we have people here who do watch it, but not everyone. But it's more like you guys. They actually do watch it, but not everyone necessarily loves it. Alex Kurtzman, he divides opinion, as you can imagine. So, there are people who like him, and there are people who hate him.
Do you watch the new Trek propagandists like Trek Culture? Do I have that one right?
Yeah.
Trek Core are cool, but Trek Culture is I don't know. I mean, their 10 dumbest things about the Wrath of Khan is, what kind of hatchet job is that? They start out by saying it's the greatest movie ever. Here's why it's stupid.
I mean, you can point out
like something, you can still criticize it.
Yeah, like Star Trek.
Maybe they're not honest brokers. I think they're part of. I think they're part of Secret Hideout or Bad Robot.
What?
Their reviews are too glowing. I believe that Trek Culture. I want to make sure I name the right one because one is cool and one isn't. I believe Trek Culture is simply a social media arm and a sock puppet of Secret Hideout. They have too many subs for a show that concentrates on things that no one cares about. Attacking Wrath of Khan. That's 700 thumbs down on that one.
And that's fine. You can have a diverse opinion. Like First Contact is a great movie.
They called it dumb,
in my opinion, but it also has its flaws. Every movie has its flaws. Every episode of Star Trek, every series of Star Trek.
Can you celebrate Star Trek if you put Wrath of Khan and dumb in the same sentence? I ask you that. Honestly,
I feel like you should never hold any kind of media that high that it's that perfect. I'm sorry. Like
no,
I agree.
If you're celebrating Star Trek and you're saying in the same sentence, Wrath of Khan has 10 dumb things in it. I don't know that you're pure of heart, and I don't know that I feel that there's good faith behind that assertion. 10 dumb things about Wrath of Khan.
It's just it's an opinion, dude.
Do you think it's dumb that Chekhov doesn't immediately call for transport and instead puts out on his helmet and runs out?
I don't know. I'm not. I don't want to. I'm not even going to think about it, to tell you the truth. But it's not. That's not the point for me. The point is that even with people you do like and admire, they're going to come out with shit that you might not necessarily agree with. I don't agree with everything. With everyone about everything. You know,
why is everything on that particular channel seem to be the message is that since Star Trek was always dumb, this dumb Star Trek is acceptable?
I think when I watch Star Trek, when I watch Trek Culture, they're quite positive about Star Trek. But if they do bring out stuff which is negative,
positive about new Trek,
and they bring out loopholes and stuff like that on Trek, and they're able to look back on it, then fair enough. I mean, you know, there's countless channels that do stuff like that. You know, I'm calling
their takedown of Wrath of Khan hateful and bad faith.
Well, I mean, I don't even think Wrath of Khan is the best TOS movie. Truth be told, like,
what's your favorite?
The Undiscovered Country.
Okay, fair enough. That's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, but I'm just
saying, very defensible take. That's not a crazy take.
But I'm just saying, I still agree with the fact that there are problems with the Undiscovered Country that still, there just are.
Is it dumb? Is it fair to call the movie dumb in 10 ways? That's not celebrating Star Trek.
I really think I think they just probably put the word dumb in there for clickbait. I mean,
yeah, it seems more clickbaity.
It's just a very clickbaity title.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Serves a certain purpose if you want people to think that this Star Trek is acceptable, when to me it's not quite that acceptable.
Hey, look, you know what? There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. You may be right, you may be wrong. I don't know. I don't know the people in Trek culture, but you know,
I think you could go take a look at their channel and you can see a certain tone to the way they address old Trek.
I watch your channel consistently, so I see everything that they post. So I know, and as I said, I don't think that I think they honor and they love old Trek, because they've also gone through and done things on all the ships. They've also gone through and done all the things on all the movies. And it's not just the dumbest things. I think they're rolling out content. And as I said, nothing is perfect. Like they know that they have to roll content out like every other day in order to keep people interested.
Weren't we just saying like after our show that one night that we thought like they were pumping out too much content and it was getting kind of weak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're grabbing so far that you'll attack Wrath of Khan just to have 7 minutes of video content, then yeah, you're shooting from a position of weakness.
And they got the thumbs down from it. It was probably, maybe you're right, it was a stupid video, but people do stupid things.
9,000 steel clappers thumbed it up. So I mean, 682 is very high though. Someone divisive like if I'll just drop a name, Nerdrotic, he'll have his like 2,000-3,000 thumbs up, and he'll only have a couple of dozen thumbs down.
Nerdrodic's a fucking idiot. No offense, mate.
You know what? I'm not aligned with him, and I have no loyalty towards him. He's just another YouTuber. So go ahead and have your opinion.
He's a fucking idiot. I wouldn't go with what anything he says personally.
He inspires a lot of strong opinions, and a lot of people disagree with him,
and
including me.
Those people are still clappers in their own right.
And you're correct about that. But I would just say this: how come
the guy
he only gets
issue with somebody with a vagina on the screen, for fuck's sake?
Man, we're like Fox News right now, everybody.
Right. My point on him is just this: if he could only generate a dozen thumbs down with what he does, right? If he only generates a dozen, if Doomcock only generates 7 thumbs down. What does it say that 10 stupid things about Wrath of Khan generated almost 800?
For a start, people like myself don't watch Nerdrotic because I don't like Nerdrotic. I won't go out.
I had to unsubscribe myself.
Who's that way inclined? While Trek Culture is a bit more of a neutral channel, so to speak. They're not really trying to be one way or the other. But they're going to come out with stuff that people are not necessarily going to find appealing, and they're going to obviously vote.
I feel they're biased in the opposite direction, but I agree with you about a lot of the things you said about Nerdrotic, and I'm not going to defend his takes. Sometimes he only gets around to the topic of sci-fi for 15 minutes. He's talking about other stuff a lot of the time.
I mean, yeah, the guy just wants to go on about agendas all the time. I just want to hear people give their take on particular shows and whether how they liked it or whatever. I don't go on about agendas because I don't look for an agenda in everything. I told people the other day, if the movie Aliens, the movie with Sigourney Weaver, if that came out today, all the fucking neckbeards and incels would be calling that shit woke. Yeah, simply because we have a strong female protagonist who's not a fucking Marine. The most masculine person in the Marines is a woman called Vasquez. Yeah, all the fucking Marines die except for the scientist, Ripley, and a little girl who ends up taking on the alien queen by herself. They'll be calling that fucking film woke as fuck, but no one today calls that film woke because it's so beloved, because it's such a fucking good movie. I think there's all this, people are looking for agendas, people are looking for anything they can to fucking have a go at everything that's coming out today, because that's how people are inclined nowadays. Anyways, can we get back to
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We came here to talk about Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
So the Una reports that Admiral April said that this has spread through the entire communication system and ostensibly the entirety of Starfleet. Songs
He
seem to be
he sang it to them in a beautiful baritone.
That's what Una says. The songs are happening at moments of heightened emotion, and the content seem to be about whatever's pressing on the person's mind the most. Pike, of course, thinks the solution is to blow it the hell up. Spock wants to test that out first on a smaller sample of the thing. Lon and Kirk pretty much have simultaneously the idea to beam in small subatomic particle sample to it, and that they could do that. But when she gets kind of volunteered to go along with beaming them in, since it's a two-person job, she goes to Una and tries to refuse the assignment. Una guesses why, and Lon tells her kind of, why things are so awkward with Kirk, and spills the beans about her time travel. Una breaks into song, and she ends up kind of cutting off the gravity, and they float around. And we see all of the members of the various plot runners, the A, B, C, and D, kind of sing during this number. They're shown as Una sings, rather, I misspoke. In the transporter room, Kirk and La'an end up beaming in these particles, and they send them to Spock in engineering. La'an is about to confess to Kirk when they feel an explosion rock the ship. So blowing up the fold.
I'll be honest with you, my attention was waning so much in this episode. I had no idea there was fucking explosions. This is like
Thank you for validating that feeling that I had as well.
Yeah.
This was a tough slog, and it was like a good 20 minutes longer. And you know what? The fact that we're calling an episode of Star Trek and we're all nodding our heads and everyone's pretty affirmative, and if you can see me, I'm nodding too. It was a tough slog. It was 25 minutes too long. Whatever you want to say that was good about it, like, we spent a lot of time doing nothing. A lot of that time was wasted. I don't think it was all time well spent. To go 79 minutes.
Okay, all this relationship bullshit was not the direction I wanted the episode to go. Like 3 relationships they were focusing on.
And low effort dancing. And like why did the singing?
79.
Why did the singing spread into being dancing as well? We never got context on that. We just suddenly dancing was part of it.
It's a musical universe, and it follows the rules of musicals, and there has to be backup dancing in musicals. Is it time for somebody to take their old man pills?
Yeah.
Did it remind anyone of the episode of, is it Voyager, where they get stuck in the reality where Michael McKean is an evil, like, Harlequin who has like some kind of self-hating time paradox and he's trapped? This is how I felt watching that episode. I got you, Mage. I got you.
But that's a good one.
That Michael McKean episode, even though I personally didn't like the episode, and I do like Michael McKean with Spinal Tap and Better Call Saul, but that felt like a throwback.
And X-Files. And X-Files, that same year, he's on X-Files. He did a lot of good sci-fi work that kind of we forget about. But you know what? In that episode of Voyager, I would say it's better than what we saw today. I felt things about I wanted everyone to be safe. And by the way, did you notice our consistent stakes problem showed up again today? What was at stake if we didn't sing right at the end of the episode, right? What was at stake if we didn't sing our way out of this?
The Klingons would blow up the fold and destroy everything connected.
End
to
of
the
everything
Communications
again.
network. Well, of Starfleet, the ships.
Pretty apocalyptic.
Travel
It was
through
all the
space.
marbles. We're going to lose Earth for sure. It was that bad. How about we put just one or two people in jeopardy? Remember, like when the Packleds kidnapped Geordi, and that was the only thing at stake in the whole episode because they were no match for the Enterprise, but they might kill Geordi.
Yeah,
and
but
remember how much we cared.
This season.
Are the Packleds really a stake? I mean,
No, but they did that. No, but they did that this
I
season.
must have missed that. Which one?
No, but I'm trying to say that they did this season with Pike and Liana and then Banga stuck on that planet, the forgetful planet with Genghis Khan. And they had the whole point was trying to rescue them. At the same time, everybody was forgetting. Like they do have.
That was the best episode this season.
Yeah,
that was this season's best episode.
You know what I mean? So
I can see making that argument absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I keep interrupting our schematic attempt to get through the episode point by point, but I would say the episode it seemed to have no timeline internally. Instead of the weekly problem where every episode seems to have its own timeline, this was like every scene had its own timeline. Like we weren't very much slaved to cause and effect or chain of events. And the way the crew sort of felt the effect of that low effort. If this had been framed in the context of the crew needs to do a play for morale, everything could have been fine. The idea that we had a sci-fi cause for it was overly grandiose, and the fact that everyone's life was at stake was overly grandiose. Couldn't we have just put on a play, and maybe one person was in trouble because of one particular technical problem they had to solve?
Yeah, but you can't always go back to the same old playbook. You need to mix things up a bit, don't you?
Well, Zam, with all respect, I believe that's the only thing this show does. We again had genocide as the stake. That's been the stakes in every season of Discovery. Every 10-hour story we've seen from these people, the stakes was genocide for everyone. And we go back to it too often. It wasn't a total genocide. It was the absolute annihilation of the only two factions we really know about. So good enough. But, how about playing small ball once in a while? Just one or two people in trouble.
Oh, last week was a personal episode regarding Mbanga. Then we had the crossover episode. That wasn't mass genocide either.
Yeah, we have divisive feelings about Mbanga. I won't even say what I call him on my channel here.
Anyway, look, I just want to quickly get to some of the comments here. Daniel Vance says clickbait titles on purpose. Yeah, look, yes. we are, and I'm happy to say it. Even we do it ourselves. With some of our thumbnails and stuff like that, they can be a bit clickbaity, and people think they're getting one thing when they're getting us instead, and they should be happy to get us. Snell Messiah said people are so inclined because it's been stuffed down our throats. Trick is to look and make it an individual judgment. As we've been, that's regarding people just looking for an agenda in everything when sometimes it's just not there. People want to find an agenda sometimes. Oh look, there's a person who looks different to me, and maybe they might be different. They might have a different sexual orientation. Boom, agenda. Like these people do fucking exist. I myself, a British person who is not white, living in the United Kingdom, who's not straight, and people, I'm bisexual, by the way, and I love fucking transgendered women all the fucking time. I go out of my way to fuck them.
All right,
so
but the point is, I'm this way inclined. And people like me fucking exist. So when people have an issue with people like me existing on the television, shit like that really fucking pisses me off when they start calling it woke. It reminds me of
let's walk away from woke for a minute. Let me ask you this. As much as the people do have a right to exist on TV, and they do where do we reach a tipping point where maybe there's over-representation? For instance, for women, look at the Federation. The Federation is completely run by females, except for Admiral April, and they're pretty inept and pretty evil. So, is that helping anyone? Not at all.
Emasculated, and then
I feel as though I can predict a story. I feel cheated out of Star Trek. I do not feel threatened.
I don't, but I sometimes don't understand why people have a problem with women, maybe even a larger cast of women, being on the show. Like, there's one guy had an issue with Discovery because there wasn't a straight white male, so he felt like he never had representation. I've never had representation on anything I fucking watch. You know what I mean? So I've got no problem with it. Yeah.
Can I talk about Steinmetz and the Doctor for a moment? May I address that for a moment since you brought it up? And I don't have a problem with them. I don't have a problem with them existing as they did. And I don't have a problem with their relationship at all. I wish it had been couched in a much better story and a much more Star Trek-like story because it was very cynical. And I felt to me that it was disingenuous to that community to have one of them reduced to a ghost almost immediately, so that if they came under scrutiny for having that relationship, they could have denied it. I felt that that was written for plausible deniability. They could have walked away from that and say there is no relationship here because one of them's a CGI ghost. Why not just have them be a regular couple?
I think what they did personally was that I think the writers realized, oh shit, we've done the kills your gaze thing again, which has happened quite a lot in Hollywood in the past. And they've repeated that same thing, which is why they brought back Culber in
not very season. Well, but yes, he's back enough now.
But
the thing is that it was all like this. This didn't release episodically, did it? Like everything was written and filmed in season 1, so it had to have been part of the story.
Well, it's the Star Trek Discovery. Well, by the time we get to the ship,
he came back in season 2.
I'm sorry. When we meet the crew of the Enterprise of the Discovery, we're at about episode 3, right? Because episode 1 and 2 we do some stuff. Episode 3 we might get to the Enterprise at the end, and then really episode 4 is where we start unpacking the people who are going to be in the Enterprise. And by episode 7, the Doctor is dead. Dr. Culber is dead.
Yeah, but they tried to do the Game of Thrones thing. Yeah, and it never stuff like that doesn't necessarily work in Star Trek.
So kill someone else.
And like what works in Star Trek is killing off red shirts.
I know they
but you just spoke to my point when you said quite correctly that it was very tropey what they did to this guy. So why not be a little bit original and have your same-sex couple be alive and survive and play with that a little bit, because there was no stakes anymore. He's already dead. What are you going to do? There's infinite re-uploads of a version of Culber somewhere as soon as he dies. And by the way, there's no meaning to death in this Star Trek, it would seem to me.
Look,
there's no meaning to death in Star Trek in general.
Personally, I was really pissed.
That starts to happen in the Nexus. Yes, we could. That's a whole discussion we could have.
I personally was pissed off what they did with Lurker. Look, I'm a bit of a lefty guy, but it was really cool to see for once a very conservative captain. And then you find out that he's from a different fucking dimension, and I was really upset by that because then you kill this guy off. It would have been nice to have a shoot first, ask questions later type of captain. It would have been a very unique take on Star Trek, but we never.
Of course,
got that.
He's evil.
He's
evil.
So they kill him off.
And the next most aggressive captain is also an evil war criminal, according to a big section of the fandom, and that's Archer. But we are deep in podcast territory again.
Let me ask you a quick question. I don't know if you want to indulge us or not, but if you had to take command of a new Trek ship, if I'm captain of any of these new Trek ships, the first thing I do, I go just in phase the first person who talks back to me. And then the next person who looks at me, oh, you got something to say? I said warp 3. I might start relieving some of these people based on their attitudes, although Ortega's for the last few episodes has been subordinate, which is nice.
Look, you can, if you see our YouTube videos on Ortega's on season 1, myself and Major Rage, we did not.
You took it to her. I agree with your take.
We
She's
did not
inconsistent.
Like her whatsoever. But they've rewritten her this season that she's not doing the shit that pissed us off with her last season. They've actually improved her character, and now I've 180'd on Ortega's. She doesn't piss me off like she did last season. They did the right thing with her, so they have improved her character, in my opinion. She's not talking back to the captain, if at all.
As much. She rolls her eyes hard every time he says something, but she doesn't talk back to him in the way she did.
I mean, yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, but I personally haven't noticed that. But her tropey, like constantly, constant sarcasm to whoever the captain orders were given to her, that shit pissed me off, because you're there to fucking do a job. You're there to fucking to fly the ship. If the captain gives you an order, you fucking do it, and you don't fucking say anything. And now she's not necessarily doing that this season, so she's won me over. And those quirkiness, those aspects of her, we're seeing that when she's away from the fucking from the desk that she's piloting the ship from, and that's where I want to see that. So anyway, can we get back to
they really owe Melissa
I've
Navia.
tried
This
to
cost
steer us
her another
back.
job.
Sorry.
I was saying I've tried to steer us back. Are you ready?
Yeah. So we
ready,
need. Sorry.
Yeah, we've got- I mean,
Admiral, we need to get back.
We're over an
Yeah.
hour in at this point.
Yeah.
So yes, the entire fleet could be destroyed if they blow up this fold. The Klingons, however, are coming to do just that, as they've been affected by this. They're going to destroy the source of their dishonor. The Enterprise crew has 2 hours to formulate a plan to prevent the Klingons from destroying this fold without starting a war, or to disable the fold and fix things. So Spock wants to analyze this field, and he and Nyota get assigned to that task, while La'an and Kirk are assigned to figure out a strategy where they could disable the Klingon weapons before they get destroyed themselves. On their way to go try to find the pattern, to kind of these frequencies and when they start up, and to try to solve this issue, Spock finds Chapel in the galley celebrating, and he comes and confronts her about obviously she's celebrating getting it put into the Fellowship. He wants to know why she couldn't help him about it.
She's the sort of person that can't, she's just not into relationships. I mean, she thought she loved Spock, but Spock was just another conquest. And someone like her, she's never going to be happy, in my opinion, until she meets Dr. Corby.
She could have just been upfront with him about the nature of their engagement, but she did at best told him that she didn't want to put a label on it. But that should have been a red flag in and of itself for Spock if he was getting feels. Being pushed emotionally, Chapel breaks into song, and there's a dance number with some bathtub singers, and Uhura captures readings on the tricorder. In the
Spock had the best voice. I just want to say that.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, see, Ethan Peck actually can sing. Yeah,
he comes from good stock, doesn't he? So like the guy he was born to be an entertainer. A bit like Dwayne Johnson. It's just like the stock he comes from. He was born to be from his mum and his dad's side. He was born to be an entertainer.
So, as Kirk and La'an plan strategy, Kirk gets La'an to finish the confession she started earlier, and she spills the beans about the other Kirk, about how he saw the real her, and he ends up asking, if he's like the other Kirk, and she says yes, she likes the way he looks at her too, but he has to drop the bomb on her that he has an on-again, off-again relationship with a scientist named Carol, who is currently pregnant.
This is the Carol from Star Trek 2, yeah?
Carol Marcus is her name, correct?
Carol Marcus.
It's New Trek Carol Marcus. Let's keep that straight. It's New Trek Carol Marcus.
Yeah, she's pregnant with David.
So
David, yes.
First contact timeline version of Carol Marcus and David Marcus. There we go.
Right. There you go.
So Uhura finds Spock in engineering, and they're looking for this pattern, and it's Spock, he's really raw from the way Chapel ended their relationship. Saying she has no problem ending things over the Fellowship in song in front of God and everybody.
Hit it and quit it, baby. Nurse Chapel.
No. He sings about how wrong he may have been. He does this awesome calculus metaphor, and we get the Y and X similes. He talks about he has this whole song and says maybe he was wrong, and he leaves distraught. Nyota begins trying to search for the pattern herself, and she breaks into a song where she talks about how sad it is to, kind of go through life by yourself. She lost her family, then she lost him, but she accepts this in the end, and as soon as she does, she finds the pattern. She goes to the captain with this and points out that there are spikes in the field whenever the songs start, and that they could induce what Spock has called an improbability-shattering event if the spike hits 344 giga-electrovolts. That sounds made up as hell.
I thought you were going to do a fucking Doc Brown impersonation.
I was just thinking, great Scott.
I'm glad all three of you called that dumb, so I don't have to.
No, but they're gonna need a grand, like a huge shipwide ensemble grand finale number to achieve this, and you would think such a thing would be a lot more impressive than what they actually pull off.
That poor one writer that had to write this whole thing.
I'm sure there are a bunch of people helping in the room, but they only chose to credit one writer. There had to be help in the writer's room.
Go for Public Domain. They started out, the best song in the whole episode was Public Domain, Anything Goes.
Oh, yeah. It gives me Temple of Doom vibes, that song does.
Yeah, that was like, if you listen closely to the beginning of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, you can hear a better movie inside of it.
Personally, I was hoping that they would send the chimes from fucking Close Encounters to the aliens. That would have been a nice little touch.
Yeah, it wasn't
important.
That was far more intelligent than this show, right? That form of communication was far, far more intelligent and trusted the audience far more to be intelligent.
Yeah.
The audience isn't as intelligent anymore, though.
Why? You know what? I still think that we should not back down from the idea that we should be respected to remember things from moment to moment. And I don't like the way they kind of re-reconcile their canon somewhat dishonestly here and there.
Well, I've always thought Star Trek canon's been all over the place. Personally, when it started for me way back in TNG, even when the final episode of TNG, Captain Riker makes the Enterprise go warp 13, but then there's the warp 10 barrier, which is on Voyager and stuff like that.
What's funny about that? That only happens in the Delta Quadrant. They go warp 13 a couple of times, other than the episode of All Good Things, which is a great episode, and the only ending to the Next Generation I personally need, and the best ending to the Next Generation.
And
so yeah, that third in the cell seems to be warp 13.
And of course, before the idea of Enterprise, it was even put down on paper. Scotty famously going into the holodeck and wanting to see the first Enterprise. Well, he should have been on a different one than the one he ended up being on. Well,
there's a whole story about that.
NX-01 wasn't a 1701. He specified the NCC-1701.
Right. The other ship is NX-01. And Archer's all proud of it. This is a warp 5 ship. We can polarize our hull.
I mean, it's got plating and everything, man. Come on. They didn't even have phase can. I'm getting ready.
We have gravity plating. I love Enterprise. I love Enterprise.
When it comes to the audience is dumb. I mean, when it comes to something that's already been well established, they don't need to constantly explain stuff too much. Like they have to in Star Trek. There's
too much hand holding. There's too much hand holding for this show.
The people who watch Star Trek are hardcore fans. That's what they're relying upon.
And they don't make certain admissions. Like, for instance, we could fix one of the biggest problems in immersion of Star Trek with a line about how what we call sonar is actually super compressed actual tachyon light that goes ahead of us so that we can detect things. It's our long-range sensors. But we're stuck with sonar in space, leaving us to believe that they use sound waves. Forget about the vacuum. Sound waves travel about 375 miles an hour to measure their, to judge where they are while they're going the speed of light. Now, one of these things is not like the other. It doesn't make much sense.
I've never heard it referred to as sonar.
Honestly, I like.
See, the TNG, it's Discovery where they say it.
Oh.
I mean, like they still do port and starboard. They're in fucking space. You know what I mean? They do port and
But
starboard.
have
in
that
space.
enabling line. I could understand
Yeah.
that they would call it sonar, but they're like, have someone be like, or tachyon sonar, and say it once and then don't say it again, and you can have it taken care of like that.
Fair enough. Anyway,
Yep, we're in the home stretch. Pike
hallelujah.
he assigns the job of inspiring the crew to all sing simultaneously to Uhura, and she manages to do so very quickly with a very uninspiring beginning of a speech breaking into song. There's
You might not know me, but I know you. It's like, what
yeah,
the fuck?
they get the hail from the Klingons in the middle of it, and the Klingons for some reason have a hip hop thing. Why Klingons and hip hop are tied together, I'm not sure.
It was stupid, but it was funny.
It's funny, but it was cringe. You gotta
it was
call
cringe.
cringe.
Yeah, exactly. It was stupid, but it was funny.
They hit 344 gigawatts, and Doc Brown rolls over, and the improbability fissure explodes and closes. Everybody mildly celebrates, and the galley, La'an and Una talk about her, telling Kirk, and Lon says maybe she'll take more chances in the future. Battelle and Pike make up and agree that maybe they'll go to someplace both of them actually want to go.
Yeah.
But after her priority 1 mission, which I think maybe that will tie into next week, and maybe we'll finally get something about the Gorn that were hinted at in episode 1 of this season.
Just a quick. Sorry, I just need to really respond to this point. Yeah, I do know that. It's a spaceship, so they naval tradition with all the naval names. I know, but it's still stupid. They're in space. They're in 3-dimensional space. I also remember in what was the final movie?
Nemesis. They had dorsal shielding, and they had
but you got fucking even though Tom Hardy was a human Picard, he's doing port and starboard on a fucking on a Romulan ship,
Romulan vessel.
Like it's stupid. Honestly, I hate it when they do that. I know what they're trying to do, and they got aye sir and all that shit. But honestly, sometimes when they do all this port and starboard bollocks, it's just like I just cringe. Anyway,
all right. So we, after that, we get one final scene on the bridge. It's
okay. No. Like there is like a leveling still in water to a degree. You do have a surface and all of that, like space. You whatever angle you're in, you're still looking straight. If you know what I mean. There is a bottom as well. Anyway, sorry. I do apologize.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
So Pike gives an order for Uhura to find non-Starfleet people to share their findings with about the nature of this fold, and she starts to scan for such people and starts humming. The rest of the crew looks a little alarmed. She just apologizes for having an earworm, and we get the credits. It's finally over. So we could get this review finally over. Let's do some final thoughts. Anything that's still burning in your craw about it real quick, and then we'll give it a mark numerically from 0 to 10, 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. Let's start. I haven't started with Cheeto in a minute. Let's start with you and go counterclockwise around the screen.
Marks or just thoughts?
Final thoughts, and then a mark.
I mean, it was what it was. It was a musical. I mean, they didn't really take it in any different direction than any other musical. Like as we said earlier, and I kind of made clear in the beginning, they really did the musical thing and leaned into the interpersonal relationships, and that just really got lost on me. They didn't do anything different with it. I thought the singing was fine. I thought it was good, actually. I didn't mind the songs and stuff like that. I just really feel like they really went with the wrong direction plot wise with this episode. And I really feel like at the end with the Klingons and all that, and then the ships dancing around one another, I thought that was really stupid. So that's it.
Okay. Admiral Teague, final thoughts? Anything else you'd like to say that you haven't mentioned yet about the episode?
Cheeto, did you give a number to your to the episode? No. Did you rate it from 0 to 5?
Not yet. Are we doing marks?
I thought we were going to do both.
Go around one more time, Marks.
Okay, so thoughts. You know what? This was not episodic. It was well over an hour. It was not good enough for regular TV. It had some real bad gender messages. We didn't really go to any planets and explore. I didn't care about the Starfleet people. They weren't very military. It wasn't very fun. It wasn't very scientific. It had a lot of anti-science. Their tech levels sometimes seemed below ours, and the crew, I didn't care about them. I would say a -2. I want to be generous here and say a -1, but the songs were really, really, really bad, so I'm going to go -2. Oh, I'm sorry, no marks yet. I'll reserve my marks. I'll keep thinking on that one.
No, it's fine. We're good.
Low effort on the songs.
Okay, look, I personally don't see this gender thing that you're on about personally. I mean, beyond, I mean, there are people of gender on board. But nevertheless, I don't see what you're getting at. I mean, we got women, we got 3 different women lusting after these guys, and they're all getting, well, I mean, maybe not Spock to a degree, but we definitely got
Spock
Liana
is lusting after La'an.
Yeah, lusting after Chapel. But fair enough,
or
2 of the women are lusting after these guys. They're not getting what they want. Fair enough. And at one point, Chapel was the one lusting after Spock at one particular point as well. So, I really don't see all this gender stuff personally, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, what this episode offered was not the direction I wanted it to go. I mentioned this earlier. I was hoping more the diplomacy wrote with the musical. I knew this was going to be a musical episode anyway, so I wasn't surprised that it was a musical episode. It just turned out to be pretty shit. And so if I'm going to mark it right now, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10.
I think that's the lowest from you all season, Zam. Wow.
Yeah.
Cheeto, throw a number at it, then I'll do a combined one, I guess.
I'm gonna do a 5.
Do a 5.
Yeah.
I also was thoroughly unimpressed by this episode. Pacing was not as bad as usual, but still lackluster. Just a lot of issues with this season overall. There have been a couple of bright spots, but no, like the musical aspects were the most entertaining parts to me, but they still could have had, more musicality. I think Admiral's right. You could have had like some, used motifs or something here and really drove home the emotions if that's what you really wanted to focus on this episode. Just a little too light of, too fake a science for a sci-fi show for me. And, I tried to give this episode a chance. I mean, one of my favorite TNG episodes is a guilty pleasure one with a stupid premise where they start devolving into animals. So
I love that episode, man.
I love
that episode's fantastic.
That episode's fun, but it is a little dumb.
Yeah, exactly. It's a guilty pleasure.
Riker being a Neanderthal, that was hilarious.
Yeah, Riker
fucking Worf turning into a monster.
It's not exactly as bad as
an insect.
Barclay
it's not like that
spider, right?
It's not what you. But Barclay turns into a spider. Picard starts to turn into a pygmy marmoset, and the whole thing is just kind of insane. But it's not as insane as the episode that was alluded to from Voyager, where by going warp 10, Tom Paris turns into a salamander.
No, dude,
and then he kidnaps the captain.
Emmy award-winning episode Threshold.
I want New Trek to go back to that planet and find those triplets and see what kind of society has come from there. Have Star Trek Discovery go there. They're way into the future. We could have like all sorts of stuff going on that planet.
See, I want to see Tomcat's babies. That's what I call the ship. They're Tomcat.
It was weird that like he might represent the next step in human evolution, and he turns into like a lungfish. I'm like,
he just wanted pizza, backwards? Bro. He would have been fine if they had given him the pizza, but this is a thing for Highly Illogical Podcast as well. We should definitely get that going. Maybe after our next break, maybe not this break between Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds, but we will be back next week for the Strange New Worlds finale. A lot of stuff goes on here at NerdTube. Tomorrow night, we've got back at its normal time slot, The World's Gone Insane. Let's Talk About It podcast. What have we got on the docket to discuss this week on that?
Oh, Ginger mentioned a whole bunch of things, but now we've I think, I'm not 100% sure, because the whole bunch of things from Elon Musk, as well as some of the stuff in sports and video games and various other things as well. But I think now with Trump possibly being arrested today, I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna have to have a quick look at it before I go to bed, because it's 1:00 in the morning right now. we might talk about that as well. So yeah, the whole bunch of things to talk about tomorrow on the World's Gone Insane podcast. You know, so but yeah, like if you look on our YouTube shorts, Ginger Greek, who hosts that show, he's basically got the whole smorgasbord of topics that we're going to be talking about. Yeah, as well as we're going to be talking about Dark Side of the Ring a little bit more. He wants to talk about that episode, which I'm sure you might want to talk about it as well, Cheeto. The Bash at the Beach. Yeah, so yeah.
If I can make it, I've got a celebration of marriage that I'm going to tomorrow night. So I don't know if I'll make it, unfortunately.
Revoke your man card. But sorry, but yeah, you can join us for that as well if you want to, Admiral. It's always good to hear people from different political opinions give their opinions. You know,
well, I try not to weigh in politically, although I do feel that I am compelled to say what I see. And when I see some of these things on some of these new Trek shows, I do feel that it is messaged. And we have seen interviews with some of these creators where they say, "Oh, we're going to make a lot of people angry with this episode." And while you may agree with the people who make the show, or you may not, making people angry with your TV show is no way to build a fandom. And fandom is maybe not refreshable. These people seem to think they could have purged out the legacy fans and had only new fans when there's room enough on the final frontier for everyone. And this all could have been done a lot better. I think the four of us could have written a better play than they just did today with some better songs.
Regarding Star Trek, just generally way back to TOS and TNG, it's always had some sort of socialist sort of like messaging with its stuff about, you know, like people work to benefit themselves. They don't work for money anymore. You know, everyone lives equally, all of this sort of stuff. I mean,
right.
That messaging has been in Star Trek from the very beginning, don't you think?
I would agree with that, but I would say that we had a society that was idealized, right? And we had also something that we forget a lot is that there was supposed to have been like maybe a quarter step made in human evolution between them and us. They're a little smarter than us. They're a little more reasonable than us. Their capacity for intelligence is higher. Captain Kirk can speak like a few languages and read Morse code in real time. We see this right on the show. He's a genius. He's also, you know, got enough of a wit to hold his own. And as far as politics, though, in Star Trek, what we used to get was an observation and a commentary on politics, right? Something divisive like the Vietnam War could be explored in an episode like TOS, A Private Little War. And your father who served in World War II and you, the kid who doesn't want to go to Vietnam, can watch that episode together in 1968. And that episode doesn't tell anybody who's right or who's wrong. It just says what's going on. It observes it. And it makes a commentary. You know, wars are bad and people should be more loving and brotherly towards each other. And even at the end, instead of laughing it up on the bridge, Kirk's like, "It's a terrible thing we've done, but it was the only way to preserve both sides. I don't know if we're right or wrong." And we have a beautiful music cue and see our ship moving away. We don't have that anymore. Like, where was our beautiful music cue to sell any of this? This musical episode that was filled with, you know, furtive songs that seemed to be filling time and a couple of like numbers that just didn't get across. They didn't get across their musical numbers.
A lot of Star Trek episodes are basically dealing with a problem that's happening around them at the particular time. It's not necessarily about to do with the diplomacy or anything like that. They, you know, like the episode where they were devolving, they just had to resolve that particular thing. You know, there was nothing, there was no greater message to that other than resolving the problem that they were dealing with at the time. But Star Trek itself, you know, Snow Messiah says that's not socialist. Well, I'll tell you one thing about Star Trek: it's definitely not fucking capitalist. You know, so this whole
it's space economics. We don't have to understand it, right? It's space, because then when they need to have money, they suddenly do. Even in the original series,
they never have. You know, they never have. Like, you know,
they discuss money a few times. They honestly do.
No, like you got people like Boimler who was winning at that table when he was on DS9. He was winning all that money, but he just gave it away because he doesn't need it. You know, like the Ferengis, they're a different, obviously, species, and they deal with money and stuff like that. But nobody's getting paid. First contact. Picard said the economics of the future is very different. We work to better ourselves. It has nothing to do with money. That's been also mentioned many a time within Star Trek.
Let me ask
And
you a
I'm just,
question about that
yeah.
movie. Do you think First Contact actually happens, or is that just a dream by Picard in the Nexus? Because when he goes to the Nexus, they tell him that he
Different
can never
conference being
leave.
mentioned in Enterprise, dude. What are you on about?
That doesn't. Hey, I'm not saying that First Contact didn't happen, and I'm not saying that Picard may not have played a role in it. But the way we saw it on screen happens after we're told that he goes into the ultimate dream machine that you cannot escape, and that if you think you escape, you only think you watch the sequence with Guinan. Watch the sequence from Generations with Guinan. It's quite damning. You can't leave. If you want to leave, you'll think you left, but you won't have left. You can always re-upload someone from the Nexus. We can't control it, and you can't enter it with a ship. How did Whoopi Guinan get in there? In a ship. So that the Nexus immediately breaks its own rules. And I would ask you, is there any escaping the infinite dream machine? Infinitely upgradable, gives you what you want.
It's a glorified fucking holodeck in space. That's all it is. I'm not sure, and I don't really care, to tell you the truth, because that means everything after Generations is not real. If it involves Jean-Luc Picard. But then again,
that theory goes back to the 20th century. Honestly,
yeah,
I didn't originate that. I don't want to take credit for that.
Yeah, but
theory.
there's things that regarding crossovers that intertwine. Outside of the TNG stuff, whether it be DS9 and Voyager and all the other shit. So is that real as well? Because they might.
It happens before the Battle of First Contact and outside the Battle of First Contact or the Battle of Earth. To which I would ask you guys in the show Picard, why didn't they use that Borgifying beam during the Battle of First Contact? It might have given them a tactical advantage because they almost win, if I recall.
I don't know.
It's almost like Star Trek is not consistent. Like
it's almost
throughout all the time.
Since
the original series, Star Trek has been one thing. The one consistent thing about Star Trek through all of Star Trek is that it's inconsistent. Anything that exists, as long as this will be inconsistent. Star Wars will be inconsistent. Star Trek, Marvel, DC, every form of media that is not real life will be inconsistent at the expense of, or at the reason of the writer. If the writer, if the person who is writing it is just, if they need to change something in a matter of convenience, they will. Mage, I know you got to go, so just
if you have to go, Mage, and go.
Yeah,
I just want to quickly. I have to quickly add as well. Leonard Nimoy mentioned that thing about canon as well, as we all know. So let's just take it for what it is, and as long as we've got some sort of relative connective tissue, just be happy that we've got something. Which it's very difficult to make all of this merge together as well as we want it to. It's not real, so just be happy with what we got.
I can't go until I ask everybody that that came tonight. I want to thank them. I need them to like the video. If like any of the stuff that we just talked about that Cheeto mentioned that's so inconsistent, if that's something you like to discuss and hear about, we talk about it here on NerdTube. So you should really consider subscribing, especially if you're new like Snail Messiah. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to everybody who came to the chat. We are here for you guys, but I have a family to take care of. Good night, everyone. Live long and prosper.
Bye.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been fun, a very jovial and interactive conversation back and forth. You're very different to some of the other Star Trek people we tend to speak to, so I'm very happy that you were with us, because it's always good to have differing opinions and stuff like that.
I'm very sorry I slowed down your schematic of the episode. I thought it was going to be a little more meta. I apologize.
It's four of us. It's four of us. It happened. But sometimes when it comes to like some of these theories, it's very hard to even know where to even begin sometimes, because it's just that.
I like the Nexus one as far as entertainment value, and on my channel we'll do Star Trek theories. Like, for instance, we're supposed to assume that there was a recalibration of warp speed, but we never get that addressed on screen or spoken of. And, if you do some math here, there's some stunning things about Star Trek. Like, do you know how long it would take the Orville to do the trip the Voyager needs 75 years for?
No, I will.
10 months.
Well,
10 months.
Somebody mentioned, like, in Star Wars about, going hyperdrive, and then Picard famously said what 1.4 or something like that. But yeah, but nevertheless, it's just, it's just without sounding slanderous or sarcastic, it's just not real, isn't it? Like, it's a future that we could all hope to have one day. This perfect future of space exploration. And not necessarily things will be peaceful, because in Star Trek things are never really that peaceful. But the exploration and just bettering ourselves, that's what I think makes us appeal to Star Trek so much, because it's beautiful. Once the original series ended, people were still going to they were doing fan conventions for years. So much so that after Star Wars, they had to make sure they did Star
There's
Trek.
something to think about for a moment, though, gentlemen. There are no new Trek conventions. There's very little new Trek. There's very little new Trek merch. What there is from Lower Decks. I think that Lower Decks needed to cross over into Strange New Worlds to help Strange New Worlds, not the other way around. I think that Strange New Worlds is a floundering show. And by the way, everybody from NerdTube who wants to come on Saving Star Trek and watch that episode with us is invited. Yeah. Absolutely invited. We're on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you want, come by. I was expecting the DM in my inbox. I didn't expect you to throw the pass right out there, and then I had to join in there, but I got it worked out. I appreciate you having me on, especially since we all differ. I just never felt this has risen to the level of Star Trek. It may have touched some of the really bad episodes of Deep Space Nine, ones that don't really make it.
Yeah, well, we have a DS9 lover here in Cheeto, by the way, so I'm not sure how he feels about that. But yeah.
I just appreciate that different YouTubers with different perspectives can have mutual respect and a mutually respectful conversation where we can enjoy and talk about this show we love and whether it's on the right path or not. Right now, I just maybe. And did you see the news today that they're thinking another season of Picard? I guess Star Trek Legacy won't fly, but they'll take it if Patrick Stewart is in it.
Well, maybe Jack Picard. Maybe it'll be him. Maybe that's the Picard we'll be following. But I don't really want to see an 83-year-old man. Like I mentioned in your chat, one of my problems with Dial of Destiny was that we've got an 80-year-old man. Like, Harrison Ford can't do these action scenes like he once did. It just doesn't work. He needs to be recast and have a younger, more vibrant guy do it. Because the good thing about Harrison Ford when he was younger, in his prime doing Indiana Jones, is that he also did a lot of his own stunts. And you want an actor like that to take up that particular role. He's just too old to do it. Like, you don't get those white knuckle moments of like you got in the original trilogy. It's just him running away from things. It was just bullshit. I didn't like that. I didn't like that movie at all.
Dial of Destiny was just, it had a lot of problems. It was ageist, and the other thing that blew my mind was his school sort of seems to have teleported from the Midwest, because if you remember in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they take they take a ride away from the school. It goes through a wheat field. It's in the middle of like Illinois or something, and now it's in the middle of Manhattan. Like, how the whole school just teleported there?
Well, I just look at him as a part-time professor who probably goes from place to place and wherever he works and stuff like that. So, but these are the sort of things that we shouldn't look too deep into. That's the thing. Like, there's some things worth looking deep into, and there's some things that ain't. And for me, that's one of those things that it's just not worth looking too deep into. He lost his son. He lost his son Mutt and stuff like that. Maybe he separated from his wife. Maybe
that's a better movie, though.
Studied at a different university.
But that's a better movie. Why is Mutt in Vietnam at 40? Why is
He
40 to
enlisted,
44?
People enlisted.
He's 40.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it was a
what they
really
like-
popular war. Everyone wanted a piece of it. But my father was so happy to go serve there. Let me tell you, and he felt like he was doing the popular thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't buy it. That would be a more interesting movie if he had gone to Vietnam. The conflict was going on around him, and he wanted to find out if Mutt was really dead. And at the end of the movie, we find a scraggly, messed up Mutt who saved some antiquity from the communists. That would a nice through line from 4.
How old was he in Kingdom of Crystal Skull?
He's 25 in 1955, so 15 years later.
No,
maybe he was a career military person, and he just
Kingdom of Crystal Skull is set in 1957.
Maybe
so
he's
it
a
would have been
pilot.
12. Yeah, it would have been 12 years later.
Even 30. Also, I'd point out that Mutt Williams is not a citizen of the United States.
What?
His father of record is a British citizen, and his mother was living in England when he was born. He doesn't make the American citizen points system, or whatever you want to call it. He doesn't have He doesn't have 2 American parents, and he wasn't born in the United States, so it's not enough. He's not. The point is that he'd have to pay taxes, but he wouldn't have to serve in Vietnam at all.
Well,
so he would have had to really want this. Well, there's your story then. Why does this guy really want to be an American? The movie would have been, your son is lost in Vietnam in the middle of this conflict. Okay. He went there to seek this mystic item.
My brother was born in Tanzania, but he'd been living in England since he was 6 months old. You know, he doesn't feel remotely Tanzanian because he's been in this country since he was 6 months old. He's got an English accent like me. People sometimes when they hear me on the phone, they sometimes think I'm my brother because we sound similar. You know,
you got a great broadcaster's voice. I'll give you that.
Thank you very much. It comes with being British. But listen, we are still streaming. I think we need to call it a day. It's 1:15 in the morning, and I got some work to do in about.
I didn't see that we were live.
Hours. Yeah, we're still live. I said goodbye to. I
didn't know we were Mage. Still live either.
Yeah, still live. Yeah. So, but just some after party talking. Cheeto, you need to go.
I mean.
I have time to round out this Star Trek conversation, but yeah, do as you will.
I'm really sorry. I would love to keep talking, but I'm keeping.
Well, I would love to know we're still live.
Yeah. It's all good. And like regarding ages, I'm being very honest. You know, like I got nothing against old people, but it just doesn't come across very plausible seeing them in action roles. You know, like when you had that
Picard got browbeat a little too much, don't you think, for his age? When the androids sent him to his room, and he just goes there, even though we're all going to die.
I don't look at Star Trek as Indiana Jones. You know, like
wait, hold on, that's a little different. We're all going to die. He was sent to his room, and he was okay with it.
Hold on, he's sent to his room. What are you on about?
Picard season 1, which they validate happened.
Oh, man,
the robots turn on their. Okay, so in episode 10, the robots turn on their genocide machine, and it's starting to work really well. And we see the Cthulhu monster start to come through, and Picard's I believe this is immortal.
Picard season 1 was a partnership, but I never really necessarily looked at a series of Star Trek as Indiana Jones white knuckle action movie, you know, which is just only a couple of hours long, and it's supposed to give you a really thrilling experience, of near death moments, and Nazis getting killed in crazy fashion, and Indiana Jones just surviving by the skin of his teeth.
Why did that one Nazi who gets hit in the face on the train? They missed a chance. Dude, but what's even though he's
Danish, by the way, but he played a Nazi. Yeah,
he should have been unalive after that. But let's just assume physics don't count in this world, and he is. They missed a chance for a great villain in the vein of Two-Face with like a bad scar or like a messed up. They had a chance to do something with this. So many opportunities were lost.
No,
that movie was very poorly made.
the moment he got hit by that pipe, that should have been dead. Another thing as well, there are people who are disfigured, and this is something I found out recently, that people who are disfigured who hate being seen as villains in movies because of because you see disfigurement as evil, and it's something that I can totally appreciate, because there are people who are burnt or whatever who are just regular people, but when they're portrayed in movies, like Alex Trevelyan in Goldeneye, he's got a burn across his face. You've got Dr. No with no hands and stuff like that. Somehow if you have disfigurement, you're evil. And so, in a way, I'm glad they didn't do that. But him being hit by a pipe,
so now they just don't get to be there at all. And you know what?
But he should have killed him.
All right, I'm gonna head out, guys. Bye.
All right, no problem.
Take it easy, Cheeto. It was great to meet you.
Yep, nice to meet you too.
I don't know if it's not ancient Greece anymore. I don't think we're in that much trouble if we have the villain who we see get hit in the head. Like he's done this through his own evil doing. He's trying to steal things and trying to further an evil cause. Undeniably evil. There's a chance there to do what we do in every Batman movie. And have, an interesting villain who had maybe some damage to his face. I'm just saying, since he should have been unalive after this event occurs anyway.
I just don't think that what they did, let alone warranted having a scar. He shouldn't have been alive. You get hit like that, you're dead.
Right.
And so that's what pissed me off the most, regardless of him having a scar or not. Mad Mikkelsen, his brother Lars, who's also going to be playing Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Ahsoka series, which will be coming out next month or this month now. So we're in August.
Now, did you watch Secret Invasion?
Yeah, it was shit.
Yeah. My take on that one was that it was this show is actually better than Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion is actually worse than Star Trek: Strange New Worlds by a lot.
Secret Invasion needed to be overall something that impacted the entire MCU, and it didn't. It felt very self-contained, and this is where Disney unfortunately cannot do a level of adult entertainment like say HBO Max can do. This is something where HBO Max should have done it, because Disney can't do this. They're not capable of doing this. This is out of their ballpark, as you guys would say. Secret Invasion was terrible. I fear for the MCU, because it does feel like it's peaked and it's now going down a downward spiral. They're giving us too much content, in my opinion, as well. I think the multiverse
hasn't generated a dime in a really long time, right? When's the last MCU movie? Maybe Love and Thunder, but about broke even.
Love and Thunder, I also thought was shit. There's only been maybe a couple of good movies.
What did you think of Wakanda?
It was all right, but what the thing is with Wakanda Forever, it was a very unique movie in the sense that
very long.
It couldn't follow the traditional tropes of a sequel because Chadwick Boseman had died. And so I found it very fascinating how they had to do the sequel when the main actor is no longer with us and they never recasted him. But
I would have resurrected Killmonger and tried to reform him and made it be a movie about that.
I was thinking that as well, to tell you the truth.
Anything would have been better than that Wakanda movie. And while Angela Bassett put in an Academy Award winning performance in Academy Award nomination worthy performance, that movie kind of took the legs out from under her ability to win, because when we have that massive attack on the observation ship that's looking for the vibranium, they delete about 200 people. And we don't find this out for a while, but then they just kind of casually mention it was all American soldiers and CIA. That feels weird that my government and my American military would be just the plain old bad guys. Where's Hydra if you want to go kill a bunch of bad guys? So we just wasted 200 Chads.
I just feel that when you got a secret race of people coming at the Earth, then the Avengers would want to know about this, and so would Nick Fury and stuff like that, but we don't see them.
He hand waves that very quickly, doesn't he? He very quickly hand waves that away.
There's still a celestial. in outer space from the Eternals that nobody fucking talks about. This giant
And something
frozen,
sticking out of the ocean.
yes, out of the ocean and out of the sky, almost into the atmosphere of space. There's this giant statue, frozen statue. Nobody bloody talks about that. And by the way, my profession's a cab driver, and the other day I had Dominic Cooper. You know who he is?
Isn't he from Lord of the Rings?
No,
No.
Dominic Cooper was
Dominic
in Captain.
Moynihan.
No, Dominic Cooper was in Captain America: The First Avenger. He played young Howard Stark. And he was in my cab the other day, and his girlfriend was in my cab, and his girlfriend was also in the Marvel movie. She played Cersei in the Eternals, so that was pretty cool having two Marvel actors in my car. That was pretty
That
cool.
is pretty cool.
I also
Were
had
they
Chrissy
good? Were
Hynde.
they decent tippers?
Yeah,
Oh, great musician.
they Dominic Cooper and his partner, they already had prepaid, so I wasn't expecting a tip because they weren't paying cash. It was already paid through on the card and stuff like that. Chrissy Hynde I picked up. Unfortunately, I took a selfie with Dominic Cooper, which was cool, and I posted that on Facebook. But I wanted to take a selfie with Chrissy Hynde, but we kind of started on the wrong foot because I have these air fresheners in my car, and they were a bit overwhelming for her, and so she started choking on my air fresheners. So I had to put them into the glove compartment, and I knew after that I lost my opportunity. I lost my opportunity to ask
Have
Chrissy Hynde
brass
for
in
it.
pocket.
Yeah,
There would be no brass in pocket after that.
Yeah, so yeah, but you know, she was all right. I dropped her to the airport. She lives in England. She's an American lady who lives in England.
She likes to live in England. Yeah, you got Madonna too, but I don't think anyone's longing for her to come back.
I don't think she'll be in my car. I had that Paul McCartney's grandson in my car the other day as well.
Which is weird because I live in New York and Paul lives here.
Yeah, his daughter, Stella McCartney, who's also been in my cab, but that was about 4 or 5 years ago. They live in England. They live.
He's prodigious. Paul probably has about 6 children by now, right? He's been married 3 times, right? He's currently married again, isn't he?
I don't know, but Stella McCartney is his most famous child because she's a fashion designer. So
I know one thing: he's the greatest bass player of all time.
Was he the bass player? Oh yeah, I think he was.
Yes,
but yeah, and yeah, I've had him. What's her name? Maisie. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
Excuse me.
Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones.
I did not. I did not. I was not a fan. I did not have that service at that time.
I had Maisie Williams who played Arya Stark. The Forrest Gump of cab drivers. That's not nice, but fair enough. I'll take it.
I called my own father Forrest Gump. I called my own father Forrest Gump for being in Vietnam and at Woodstock. So don't worry. He means it. I'm sure he means it in a good way.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know, football. I'm not. Are you into soccer?
You know, I'm an American. I like our particular oval football.
Yeah, but football in world football has finally conquered America now, which I'm very happy. And there are Americans who love it. Like my team, Arsenal, they did a preseason tour in America. So many American fans follow my club.
I think they play at Yankee Stadium when they play in America. I think that's one of the things that they do.
Well, I had a famous
Arsenal's internationally famous.
I had a famous player called Samuel Eto'o. He's really famous. He used to play for Barcelona and Inter Milan and Chelsea, and yeah, that was pretty cool. I had oh god,
so where are you from? Morrissey Land or London or
London?
Without doxing yourself.
Yeah,
well, I know Morrissey's from a different part of England. He's from Manchester, which is in the Midlands, right?
Yeah. I've had one of the
from there.
I've had Martin Kemp. Was it Gary Kemp? I can't remember. Is Gary Kemp the one who played in? Was he the one in? Was Gary Kemp the one in Bodyguard? Yeah, Gary Kemp. I've had Gary Kemp in my car. Yeah, he was in the Bodyguard.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I've had loads of actors and and famous personalities, like a DJ called Trevor Nelson. I've had him in my car. He's quite famous. There's a famous journalist called Andrew Marr. I've had him in my car a couple of times. This
just speaks to the international nature of what we're doing. Here we are on a Star Trek broadcast, and we have two men from two completely different parts of the world who both live in world cities, and we have a shared passion. And you live in New York, you run into a bunch of celebrities too. It's crazy, but
I've been to New York. I've been to New York several times. I was last there in 2008. I remember when I was in this was only 7 years after 9/11, and look at me. You can imagine the sort of hostility I got when I got off the plane, because they bloody immediately took me in for interrogation. Really pissed me off. That did.
We found out that all of that stuff did no good. So I on behalf of Americans who love everybody from everywhere else, sorry about that. But you know what? I saw the attack. I saw the attack.
Look, it's racial
enough
profiling.
To make people act well. Yeah, I would agree.
But I expect better from the people who work at the airports, because they need to be more knowledgeable. I mean, because I'm with my white friend, my white best friend. Me and him go to America together. I could have brainwashed my white friend, given him my WMDs, and tell him to blow himself up for Allah, because they're not going to fucking check on the white guy. They're going to check on me.
Well, you came right after. They do racial profiling. I agree. It's not right. I agree with that too. So, and I would say this: didn't you come on hot in the heels of Richard Reed? Isn't it the same year?
Oh, I came in
year 07.
I came in 2008. But the point is that if you're going to check me, then check the people with me, because they're with me. If I'm worthy of being checked, then so should my friend, regardless of his skin color, because the last time I checked, Islam is not a race, it's a fucking religion. You could be blonde and blue eye, and be fucking Muslim. You know what I mean? So check the person with me just in case. And that's how you're going to have another 9/11, because you're going to have a white guy with fucking blonde with blonde hair and blue eyes, who's Muslim as fuck, who fucking reads all that shit, is fucking totally radicalized, and you're going to and your fucking security will totally ignore him because he doesn't look like the stereotype like me. And that's unfortunately what I think what might happen in the future, because I get racially profiled. So, but nevertheless, whilst I was there, I remember also I was in New York. I was on the subway, and I was going to the World Trade Center Memorial, and I couldn't understand the fucking subway map. It was very confusing.
It's based on the London subway map. It should have been intuitive.
Yeah, I thought that too. I genuinely thought that, but I couldn't understand it for love or money. So I thought to myself, I need to know
our subway's a lot bigger, right?
Or I mean, I wasn't really checking the size, but the point is, I wanted to make sure that I was on the right carriage. So I see a couple of police officers, and I thought, let me go ask them for directions. Yeah, and so I go up to the police officer, and then the police officer turns on his heel, and he puts his hand over the fucking holster of his gun. I almost shit myself right there and then, but I've never, I'm from England. I'm not used to people fucking possibly going to shoot me with a fucking gun, because I'm from fucking England. So that was a very unique experience for me, because I could look like fucking Al Qaeda. I could wear a turban and fucking, a robe or whatever, look like Al Qaeda, go up to an armed police officer in England and not worried about being fucking shot, because we're not trigger happy in this country. But this motherfucker, I thought he was going to fucking kill me right there and then, so I was worried as fuck.
Full disclosure here.
Yeah.
I'm a seventh generation New Yorker. Okay. We saw what I look like. Nonetheless, just like Charlie Sheen and his brother Emilio Estevez, I'm Latino. And I would just say this. I guess it's uniquely American, but hand on the gun, just sort of casually, not even giving a shit. That's just sort of how NYPD cops stand. And I saw the attacks, and I lost a couple of friends due to the after effects, including one who got very ill and stayed ill for several years. So I'm not overly objective on the 9/11 attacks. I do believe that if you bring evil to our country, evil will be delivered back to you, and maybe it'll be justice, and maybe it won't, but it will be.
Yeah.
You want to sow the wind like that, things going to happen. Am I sorry that people got racially profiled? I absolutely am. because we found out it did no good. If it had saved American lives, I would stand here and argue with you. But we found
It's just
out
the
it was
education
useless.
as well, because you know what Sikhs are. Sikhs, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they wear turbans. They're a totally different religion. They're
I,
not
I
Muslim.
live across the street
Yeah.
from a mosque. This is
So
still
you
this
like
is New York. I live in New York City. It's another
yeah,
world
that's a
city.
mosque.
It's just like
Yeah,
London.
but Sikhs are more inclined to be Hindu, so they're more likely to go to a
Right.
temple.
But what I'm
Yeah, I
saying
mean,
is I live
yeah,
in a multicultural town.
fair enough. But unfortunately, like I think it's Jacksonville Heights where a lot of Indian people live. I think in New York.
Jackson Heights, Queens, you're talking about?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, sorry, Jackson Heights, something like that. But a lot of
Queens is the
Sikhs.
most diverse borough in New York City and has the lowest crime. And I think there's a connection.
The point I'm trying to get is that people mistook Sikhs as for Muslims, even though they're Sikhs, they're not Muslim, and they had the shit
Right.
beaten out of them. You know what I mean? Because they just got people with turbans and immediately assumed that they're fucking Muslim. There's a famous clip actually, and this is you'd be happy to know this is the Canada. There's a Canadian politician who's a Sikh who could possibly be the Prime Minister of Canada one day, and this dumb fucking bitch, paraded around him saying that this guy's part of the Muslim Brotherhood and shit like that. He's a fucking Sikh. You know what I mean? And saying that he's part of the Muslim fucking Brotherhood. It was the most stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen. But unfortunately, when people don't educate themselves and understand about other cultures and they just see turban, so they immediately assume fucking Muslim, then you're going to get stupidity like that. And this is the sad thing, unfortunately.
The beard style and measure and dress is completely different, ladies and gentlemen. Know your Sikhs from your Muslims. It's a totally different look.
And even then, just because somebody is a Muslim, but I'm an ex-Muslim, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in religion. I think it's all fucking stupid. But nevertheless, regardless, I actually called myself a Muslim when I came to America, because they're more hostile towards atheists than they are towards Muslims. So, so I had to call myself a fucking
Depends
Muslim.
what part of this country you go to. The country is huge. Remember, it's like it's like 11 times the size of England.
Yeah, no doubt. Anyway, let's just wrap things up here, because I've got 3 parrots and they're probably hearing my voice, wondering why I'm not in bed yet.
My neighbor has a parrot. I hate them for that.
Well, I have a sun konya, a konya, and a kakariki. I should have seen the first
probably
time.
Trained.
Well, my son Konya is. He loves me to bits. He's just a baby, by the way. He's only like 12 weeks old, and he wants my attention all the time. And my kakariki, I trained myself, and she loves me to bits. But the son Konya, I'm still trying to win him over. He's a bit difficult, but I'm getting there. Anyway, should have seen the first time I entered the States, 1996, coming from Canada to the States, on the customs office hip is a giant shiny revolver bullets in his belt with a split tip. Yeah,
I believe it. Yeah, but we're a little gun crazy here, like no doubt about it. I have to be agnostic about it. This is the country I live in. This is the way we choose to live. I'm not going to tell people how to live their lives, but yeah. And on border enforcement too, it's like maybe a little over the top, especially the northern border where we don't really have any trouble.
Can a Sikh call in sick? Well, look, they can without any confusion, but they're not going to say, "Hey, I'm sick." No, their fucking name. Their name's going to probably be Singh. That's funny enough. Funny enough.
Pretty good.
Khan noonien-singh is probably a Sikh. Funnily enough. Can a Sikh?
I wonder if he's not a spaciest. He's far too hubristic to be part of any belief system other than his own power. I would believe that Khan, whether or not he believes there's any sort of higher power, he could care less about it. He's going to seize power in this world, right? He's very nihilistic.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting if there is any novels on Khan, pre-eugenic wars and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see how they write him. Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what they say about him. But unfortunately, with books, the canon in books can be immediately eradicated. If they need to make a movie.
We saw that
with Star Wars.
We saw that in Into Darkness, where a very, very dumb Khan uses a 300-year-old piece of technology to attack Starfleet headquarters. Now, Zam, I would suggest that this is like you and I attacking the United Nations in a wooden sailing ship with smoothbore cannons. He took a helicopter. He knew exactly where to strike. That part was smart. But do you remember how we stopped fake Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness? Do you remember what stopped his attack on his devastating attack? He was getting off.
They saved those bodies, and I think Spock beat the shit out of him.
Well, no, what happens was Captain Kirk threw
remember.
a fire hose into the fan blade of his helicopter, and he ends up almost crashing, but he beams across the galaxy in a never revealed technology. That's the
fair
level.
enough. I vaguely remember it because it was so shit.
It was shit. And you know what? That's what I hate about this new Trek and this Strange New Worlds is we have such writing of convenience. It's so convenient. Every episode is a timeline of its own.
Star Trek itself, when the first new Star Trek movie, the one with the Romulans and Eric Bana, excellent. You know, it was a really clever read.
Is it though? I disagree.
I personally enjoyed it.
With all due respect, it wasn't a bad movie, but cheating and lying shouldn't be the way to get ahead in the Federation. They're not good guys if that's what they do.
Yeah, but I think Kirk mentioned that in Star Trek 2, which is how he beat the Kobayashi Maru as well. So they'll just it was just history repeating itself to a degree.
All right, let's have fun with this for a second. All right, go ahead and finish your point. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, honestly, I don't really give a fuck about that too much. I'm just saying regarding Star Trek, Star Trek Into Darkness, I just thought that was shit because they went back to the well. I mean, the whole point of the Star Trek film was to go a different direction, and then they went back to the well. And
this
so
was a very different Khan.
Yeah, but
that was a very bad Khan. There was no reason to fear that Khan.
No, but they just didn't need to do Khan. Just do a fucking different story.
Or
that's the whole point of doing this. You know, which is why Star Trek Beyond was so much better.
Zam, since we can't stop them, and we knew that Khan was this shiny object to these guys that they couldn't resist. And I encourage you, if you have the movie 09, listen to the director's commentary from JJ and how contemptuous he is of the audience. But if they had to have Khan, a Space Seed movie would have been fine and cost a lot less. I would have watched the Space Seed movie. You wouldn't, right? Come on. It would have been great.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, Snell's Messiah says, well, it's his time for bed. He's 1 hour ahead of me, so he would have been, it must be close to 3 o'clock in the morning for him.
Snell Messiah gets the loyalty badge for saving Star Trek.
Yeah,
he's been at it all day.
For sure. It's almost 2 o'clock. I mean, I've already stayed up an hour and a half longer than I should have, and I have an electric car. I need to charge.
It's 8:30 p.m. where I am. It's no big deal. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you. Go ahead and charge up that car.
Yeah, I love it. By the way, if you ever drive away, get yourself an electric car. It'll be the best thing you ever done. Fucking awesome. I love my electric car so much. It's the best.
Really?
I never want to go back to. I've been a cab driver for a long time, and I've only I had my electric car for about a year. And of all the cars I've driven before I became a cab driver, all of that sort of stuff, I've driven some really good cars. This is the best fucking thing I've ever driven, and it's so fast, economical, smooth. It's not loud. It's not noisy. You know, like I would sometimes spend like £150 a week on my petrol car, my fuel car. I'm spending maybe about £30 a week, maybe £40 a week on my electric car. And you know, that's as a cab driver. If a regular person like you had an electric car, you'd probably be spending less than half of that. It's so fucking good. I think some people get this wrong idea about electric cars, you know, thinking that they're not cool. Trust me, they're really cool. It's the future. I'm driving the future right now. Fossil fuels won't last forever, and we need to find alternative ways of doing things. I have solar panels on my roof. You know how much money I'm saving? I'm saving so much fucking money because I don't
That's
fucking.
surprising because one would think in a place like London it would be excessively cloudy because doesn't it rain a lot in England?
It does. It does get cloudy. It does rain, but we're not the Antarctic or the Arctic here. We're not even a Scandinavian country. We do get good weather, but we just happen to be an island, which is why sometimes we get some shit weather as well. But even when
New
it's
York's an
cloudy,
island too. Don't worry, I feel your pain.
but even when it is cloudy, you still get solar power even on cloudy days. You do so. The technology is just so good now, and I have not paid. I've not paid an electricity bill in the last, since February. But I had this. Sorry, no, since March. I had this installed in April, May, June, July, and now August. I haven't paid a single electricity bill. All my electricity has been close to free.
And your petrol bill or your gasoline bill, as we say here in America, is about
Yeah,
1/3 what it was.
But on top of that, I have cheap electricity after midnight. So between midnight and 5 a.m., the electricity is very cheap, which is when I charge my car. And so it only cost me like maybe £2 or £3. If my battery was depleted, it'll cost me maybe £6 to charge my car from a dead battery. But my battery's never really depleted, so I'm only spending £2 or £3 to charge my battery. So actually £30-40 a week is a bit of an overstatement. I'm probably spending, if I'm spending maybe £6, maybe £20 a week, come to think of it.
So that's about $23 for our American friends.
Yeah, maybe a bit more, maybe more close to $30.
I just checked the exchange rate right now.
Really?
The pound is $1.30.
$1.30. Oh god, I thought it was one and a half. All right, fair enough.
Okay, maybe it went up, but you know what? We should start.
What
we should do is you send me £100 and I'll send it back the next day, and we keep parlaying it back and forth, and we just skim off the money we make in the exchange rate and have our own Ponzi scheme.
I have actually I have a lot of foreign money on me. I have like close to $200 in American dollars because I get tips from American customers and they don't have English money on them. Sorry,
That's
so they
more
give me
than most
dollars.
Americans have.
Yeah, so I get that, and I've got some euros as well. I sometimes get given euros as well as English. I mainly get given English money too.
Now, when I went to Europe, that felt like the future to me. Now, I don't know if you've been to the Netherlands, but that's where I went.
I have.
Schiphol is the airport.
I got stoned out my fucking head.
Oh my God, was I ever high out of my mind when I was in the red light district at the Old Kirk, stumbling around. And then you're smoking a joint and you see the police and you get scared and you realize, wait a minute, it doesn't matter. It's totally okay.
Yeah, the Royale with cheese and all of that. But I used to smoke. I've quit smoking now. I haven't smoked for like 3 years. So I put on a bit of weight, unfortunately. But it's one of the best things I ever did. I just don't smoke. I used to smoke. I used to smoke weed. I used to smoke everything, but I can't now. I'm not getting any younger, and I was a bit overweight anyway. And then I started feeling some chest pains, and I realized, okay, that's it. That life is over. I can't ever go back to it. Because I found it even hard to lie down. That's why I started
drinking Synthahol. It's a lot like alcohol, but the effects are easily dismissed, and there are no calories.
Yeah, but I drive for a living, so I can't even do that. So, but the point is that I wasn't able to even lie down on my back. It hurt so much, my chest. So I had to quit smoking, and the amount of money I've saved because I don't waste it on fucking weed and tobacco and rolling papers and lighters and shit. It's amazing.
I can go out and tie one on at the bar for the money I save every month not smoking.
God, you know what? When I was in your country, what pissed me off was you guys don't put tax on your fucking prices. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like if something costs 90 cents, it's 90 cents plus tax. That's not you guys. The Canadians do that as well. Like, what the fuck? Like I had to take a bloody calculator with me everywhere I went. And also,
that's on the merchant.
If you're foreign, they'll ask you for your ID all the time. You know what I mean, to prove your age. So I wouldn't know.
I've only been here as an American.
Yeah, so but like everywhere I go, whether it be Canada or America, I mean, I had to take, I didn't want to do this, but I had no choice because they're not going to believe a British driving license. They have no idea what the fuck that is. So I had to take my passport with me as proof of identification. So that way, they would know I'm over 18, so I can get fucking drunk. Ridiculous. You know what I mean? I don't want to take my
You'd have
passport with
no
me when I'm
problem
going to
with the
get
bar
drunk.
by me. We have plenty of
Yeah.
Irish and British bars that would absolutely honor that ID because they would know exactly what they were looking at. The bartenders are from there.
Fair enough.
I live in New York. If I'm going to go to a bar, I'll go to the British or the Irish bar. If I'm going to go to a restaurant, I'm going to go to a real Italian pizzeria. If I'm going to get bagels, I'm going to go to a real Mexican bagel shop.
Yeah, I like my bagels, by the way, and I like my pizzas, like my New York style pizzas and stuff like that.
We got pizza and bagels like no other part of the world. I'm convinced if we could export pizza and bagels to the rest of the world, mankind would advance to Star Trek within 6 months. If everyone had New York style pizza and bagels deliverable in half an hour, most conflict would go away.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We have a really good bagel place in London. There's actually 2 bagel places. It's on a road called Brick Lane, and they're open 24 hours a day, and they're like 2 of the best bagel places in the country. So anyway, I'm really sorry, Admiral. I need to go to bed. I really do.
We're ending this thing. My link's in the chat. It's been a pleasure. You guys are all invited to come by Saving Star Trek. Next time you invite me on, just DM it to me. I was looking in my inbox for that invite. I'm like, what the hell? And then I saw it in my chat stream. So you gotta be careful. Sometimes people sock puppet their way on here. I've seen a couple of bad faith invites where people throw the invite into the chat stream and people come on and just are a little uncool.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I'm glad you got your message. You got my message on.
Twitter. It was very generous.
I'm never going to call it
X.
Me. I'm never going to.
It's freaking Twitter. No, you guys are really fair, and we've been endorsing NerdTube on my show for a while now. I think you guys have a fair take on Star Trek. It's not my take on Star Trek, but we can disagree without being disagreeable, as we just have for the last couple hours. It's been a fun time talking about it. Ladies and gentlemen, don't watch this latest episode of Strange New Worlds. My final word on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that watch it, but don't expect to like it. It's a shame in a way because I was very much looking forward to this episode, and it's let me down. Let me down in a way that not because it's a musical, it's let me down in the delivery of it, but
the songs weren't that good. The songs weren't very good, and I would again just make the point: we sounded like we were in the song between the songs, where they're sort of doing expository stuff between your 2 big songs. We always felt like we were building up to a song, and then there was no musicality or songishness to the songs. And you'd expect 3 or 4 writers on this instead of it seems to have only been 1.
Yeah.
This might have been done just to beat the Orville to the punch so they can say they did it first.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sorry, I'm running on autopilot now. So to everyone out there on YouTube land, thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day and take care. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe to NerdTube, the greatest YouTube channel you never heard of. Bye-bye.